Behind schedule, so can we just please settle down and start with our meeting today. A warm welcome to the members of the Portfolio Committee, and also a warm welcome to the AG's office and the Minister and the delegation from the department. We've convened this meeting because we could not have this meeting last week when we conducted our oversight in Free State, last week in Free State. And we've agreed that we will reconvene the meeting today so that we can take the report from the AG and further the report from the department. We insisted that we wanted, the committee members insisted that it would be important that the minister is present for this report. And as a result, we are here today. So I'm just going to skip to welcoming remarks because we've been doing those for the past two meetings that we had to reschedule. However, Minister, just to say that we are seriously concerned as a committee with the spiking numbers of bullying in our schools. I mean, we just conducted an oversight yesterday at Middleton High School, and we were really deeply concerned with what we heard when we were there, that there seemingly is a growing culture of violence in our schools. And we were also just disappointed with the fact that we could not get a sense that the school had a comprehensive anti-bullying policy. And I remember the conversation we had with the department on the 17th of June on anti-bullying strategies, and I had to go back to my notes on what the department said, and I was a little bit disturbed that that was the case. And we just woke up to the news about the Gauteng incidents as well, where Lena was stabbed and bullying. So there seemed to be just a spike in the number of violence incidences in our schools amongst learners. At some stage when we called you, we were concerned with these incidences between learners and teachers, and now it is amongst learners, and it is really concerning because parents are literally saying we are afraid to take our children to schools. So it is something, it's really business unusual, and we would need to come up with measures and means to ensure that we restore the conducive environment in our schools and our children feel safe, and parents also are assured that their children are safe at that school. So I think we ought to find time to engage on that, on what exactly are we going to do to ensure that we deal with that situation. We know that the NSC exams have started, and we're going to be receiving a report today on your state of readiness. Of course, they have started already, but also take us through the problems, if there are any challenges that you've encountered, starting with your NSC exams on Thursday, if they are, and if there are any anticipated challenges in different provinces. I know we had to deal with natural disasters in the Eastern Cape, I think it was last year. So just if there is any anticipated incidences, just let us know as a committee. But I think that we'll find time to engage on those. But you're all welcome and most welcome, and we appreciate your presence here today. So we're going to start in terms of our agenda with the AG. Okay.
Sorry, Chair, I was going to just say to your point about the bullying strategy and perhaps what we can do, we allow the AG to start and I'll incorporate it in the departmental presentation. Thanks.
Yes, that's fine. Honorable Sharif.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just on your opening remarks, I think we had a brief conversation this morning when you got here that I think it's important for us as a committee to go to Gauteng. Hopefully next week when we can find some time, because our meeting is virtual, maybe we can go to Gauteng and visit the school where the stabbing incident happened, but also to Westbury. Because those children that were shot and murdered, the allegations is that they were bullied at school and then they were shot and murdered. And we can't live in a country where children are scared to go to school because of their lives. And I think, since we want to be a more proactive committee, I really suggest that we put on our calendar and find a day at least to go to Gauteng next week and call the department, the provincial department, so that they can also tell us what is the anti-bullying policy and what is their interventions to make sure this doesn't. Chair, 2025, we can't be living in a country where children are scared to go to school. Thank you, Chair.
No, that's in order, that's noted. It's a proposal that has been made by Honorable Sharif, and I did commit to say we'll make that application, we'll make that request to the House Chairperson. Let us start with, in terms of our agenda, let's go through our agenda. We are starting with AG today. But let's deal with apologies and attendance register today, firstly, before we go to the AG's office.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, members. Good morning, Chair, members, and Minister officials. Chair, attendance, I have yourself, Honourable Maimela, I have Honourable Kabanchaba, I have Honourable Magagula, Honourable Sharif, Honourable Mgadi, Honourable Mkize, and Honourable Ngubeni. Apologies received from Honourable Van der Walt and Honourable Shikwambana, as well as Honourable Yodana, of course, she's on maternity leave, Chairperson. Those were the apologies today. Thanks very much.
Okay. Honourable Kaba.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm not feeling well. I think my doctor said I must come to see her on 11:15.
Okay. So you're requesting to be excused at 11:15?
I think at 11.
At 11?
Yeah,
okay.
so that is
That's noted.
Yeah,
Noted, Ma'am. Honourable Ngobeni.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to everyone. If we are not done by 5 o'clock, I would have to leave. Oh, well, actually, maybe just before, because my flight is at 6, so I guess I have to be there at 5. Yeah, something like that. Thanks.
But Chair, I will come back after the doctor.
Okay. Thank you very much for those apologies. Hopefully we are done by then, Honourable Ngobeni. Hopefully we are done by then.
Sorry, Chairperson. Just one oversight from me. I did get the lady from AXA has indicated, I was just trying to figure out what the name is, Mrs. She has requested that she may be allowed to leave us a bit later at about 1 this afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you,
No. Our agreement was that AXA would do the presentation. We'll deal with your presentation. After that, we'll release AXA. You don't have to be here for the rest of the meeting. So we're hoping that it will be done by then. Yes. Okay, with those apologies, can we then get into the presentation from the AG General? We received this presentation some time ago, and we do hope that members have went through the presentation thoroughly so that we're able to interface with that presentation. AG's office, over to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning to you, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, the Minister of the Department of Basic Education, the Director General, the colleagues from both the department and the AGSA. Thank you for having us in this meeting, Honourable Chair. What we're bringing to you is the audit outcome. These are the audit outcome for the Department of Basic Education and its entities for the year that ended 31st of March 2025. Chair, as part of the PAG, the first part of the PAG will deal with the National Department of Basic Education together with its entities, SAIS and Umalusi. But the next segment of this presentation will then speak to the sector. So we'll bring you the audit outcome across all 9 provinces. In addition to that, we'll also just share with the committee the work that we've done on the sector around the specific topics that the AGSA had worked on for the year that ended in March. So as part of the presentation, we'll also touch a bit in terms of how far we've gone with the material irregularity process. That will be the amendment to the Public Audit Act that was introduced in 2018 in particular. Allow me, Chair, just as a start, just a reminder of why AGSA do what they are doing and why we are here. You remember that as part of our aspiration, we are hoping that as the AGSA, we can continuously enable accountability. And therefore, our role is that which empowers, particularly Parliament, in ensuring that when you do your accountability processes, you are considerate of the work that the AGSA has done.
So as part of the pack, we'll highlight what we found in terms of the progress on the recommendations that we put on the table in the sector in the previous year, but also touch some of the challenges that are facing the sector, and we'll also indicate where the sector had done a bit better or a bit good in terms of where we are coming from. So the responsibility and the role of the AGSA, it is that of enabling accountability. And we're forever grateful for the committee allowing us to indulge you before you make your final determination of how you're supporting the department and the sector going forward. There is this particular slide, I think I'll go straight to slide number 2. And on that slide, there is a model that we continuously highlight as the AGSA that underpins the culture, the desired culture in the public sector. And we speak to performance. And performance really just say everybody that we had put on our payroll, they ought to do what they were meant to do. And that does not only speak to senior level, it speaks to the whole value chain. We speak to accountability, that basically say that when things did not go as much as we wanted them to go, we must not be shy in instituting consequence management so that we can correct the behavior. But importantly, we can make sure that we are able to progress as a sector and as a department. The element of transparency that is also introduced by the Public Finance Management Act that speaks to the financial reporting that is transparent, as well as the performance reporting that is transparent to enable and facilitate accountability. We speak to the institutional integrity and capability that just makes sure that in everything that we are doing, we have to prioritize ethics, but importantly, we have to prioritize doing the right things at all times. And that underpins the culture that is desirable for a good foundation on service delivery. On the next slide. This slide will keep bringing it to all the platform, Honorable Chair. As the AGSA, we do not believe that one particular stakeholder on their own, they'll be able to move the sector on basic education. If you look at how we are wired, even legislation-wise, the legislation in South Africa is actually structured in a manner that says every person that we bring in our system have to do what they need to do. So this model basically says that as a sector, you're going to be as strong as your weakest link. And that's how we put it, that with the best of a CFO or with the best of an internal audit for that matter, if any of the stakeholders on the ecosystem are not pulling their part, we will not be successful, and therefore the service delivery that eventually end up with the citizen will always be wanting. As the AGSA, the insights that we are bringing, we are hoping that they can influence the decision making such that we strive for a stronger control environment. The enforcement that is introduced by the Public Audit Act, we continue to work on it as the AGSA, but we know that on its own it is not sustainable, which means that we shouldn't be working hard because there will be a material irregularity that comes through. That's not sustainable. We should be working hard because we have aspirations and objectives as a sector in terms of what we need to do. So we are cognizant that as this committee, in the immediate, we'll deal with the Department of Basic Education and the entities as I indicated. You have a good story there from Umalusi in particular, because they used to have a clean administration, which means that unqualified with no findings. And for a year or so, they had regressed and they had challenges. But we're glad that they had pulled back. So we are happy to report as the AGSA that when you look at the financial reporting of Umalusi, you can rely on it. And that's what unqualified means. It means that it is reliable such that you can then speak to what you wanted to achieve. And therefore, your decision-making will not be misled. So Umalusi in the sector, for us, it remains an example. And I don't take for granted the size of the National Department of Basic Education. But in terms of how they wire their processes, it is something that as the AGSA we admire, and we are encouraged that they were able to come back to that particular reporting processes. If you look at basic education in particular, the history will tell you that you come a long way, especially in terms of infrastructure development, right? So sure, we remain encouraged that you got out of a qualification. That's a good thing, right? But what we want to nudge the sector on, the department on, is just to continuously work on the remaining, especially element of compliance so far as irregular expenditure is concerned. And just make sure that we can unlock our potential completely. And therefore, we can be able to be the
the lead in the sector, even in terms of financial and performance reporting. So you sure come a long way, and we sure as the AGSA never take for granted where you are coming from. And we are encouraged that you continuously move. I mean, if you look at your performance reporting, in terms of the reliability, is something that you can rely on. And therefore, it facilitates conversation as far as portfolio committee is concerned. So, Chair, maybe let me pause here as I hand over to my colleague to then take us through the nitty-gritty of the presentation. If I may take your guidance in terms of the time you are affording us so that we are able to gauge ourselves properly. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I will give you 15 minutes from now. 15 minutes from now. So I don't count what we've already spent, just for now. And then I will give maybe a variation of 5 minutes. Yeah.
Honorable Chair, that is challenge. You have the whole country in the pack. May I beg for an hour?
An hour.
Yeah, may I beg for it?
Let's try to do maybe the 20 minutes and see. If we're not done in the 20 minutes, maybe we'll see. But yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. All right, let's vote on.
Thank you so much, VE. Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, the Minister, DG, DM. Good morning. Morning to the colleagues in attendance. Chair, I'll do my utmost best to run through quickly the presentation. I note the comments that you have made that you have gone through the presentation already from your side. So quickly on the slide 4, Chair, just to give you a brief overview in terms of the auditees that we audited in the current financial year in the portfolio together with the sector. So we had the National Department of Basic Education together with the entities Umalus as well as SACE. Just as a reminder, Chair, that SACE and Umalus are not actually audited by Auditor General. They are what we call Section 4.3s in line with the PAA. So they are audited by the private firms. We also bring in to you the audit outcomes of the provincial education, looking at the work that we have done at the education districts as well as the schools. So in terms of the audit outcomes, specifically on the department together with the 2 entities, Chair, you remember last year we brought to you the audit outcomes of these entities, and we, utmost importance, we brought forward the recommendations that they needed to put forth to make sure that they turn around in terms of the nature or the issues that we are picking up in terms of our audit. So specifically on Umalusi, we highlighted the issues around the in-year monitoring as well as the corrective actions to ensure reliable financial reporting. Based on the audit that we have conducted in the current financial year, we're glad to announce that they have actually implemented all the recommendations that were put forth. Hence, you'll see the shift there in terms of the audit outcomes. From the side of the department, we highlighted the issues when it comes to the irregular expenditure, fruitless and wasteful, that emanated from the findings that we raised on the procurement and contract management, together with other areas of compliance. Those we have assessed as being in progress because we are still identifying some of the issues that are relating specifically to those areas in the current financial year. But I'm going to dwell much in terms of those areas when I get to the slides that speak specifically to those. Lastly, in terms of the recommendations, we provided that it's very critical that the department ensures that they include all the MTSF indicators as part of their IPP. And again, Chair, to indicate that the good progress that we have noted in that regard, where the department has actually included all the MTSF indicators as part of the APP. So in terms of the audit outcomes, as I've already highlighted, we have noted an improvement in the current financial year, specifically on Umalusi, where they have now improved in terms of their audit outcomes. So it's unqualified with no finding, called a clean audit in the current financial year, as we have not identified any material misstatement in this regard. And also just to highlight that all the entity or auditees within the portfolio managed to submit their financial statements 31 May, as per the PFMA. Just to highlight, Chair, in terms of the overall outcome, the department as well as SACE received, again, unqualified with findings. Specifically on the department, there were issues that we have identified in relation to the accounting for infrastructure assets, and also the non-compliances with laws and regulations. And again, on my essays, we have also again identified material misstatements on a number of line items in their financial statement in that regard, and also performance information, but I'll dwell much in terms of the particular issues when I get to the slide that deals with the performance information. As part of the root cause that we have noted is that there was inadequate review of the financial statement or the information that is feeding to the financial statement for proper reporting in that regard. And again, from the side of the department, we have identified discrepancies when you look at the books of the department together with the information that is coming from the implementing agents, where we have noted that from the side of the implementing agent, they would be indicating that there are a number of schools that have been completed on the ground. However, from the side of the department, they are still reflected as those that are still in progress. So they had to, then from our side, what we're putting forth there is the fact that there is no reconciliation that is done between the two. So we are actually recommending that there should be some processes that are introduced to make sure that, to facilitate that reconciliation of the information before it is reported or submitted, the financials are submitted to us for audit purposes. And also, with regards to the compliance with laws and regulations, we have highlighted the fact that the department is not holding the implementing agents accountable for not adhering to the SCM prescripts, as we have again identified findings in that regard that has been caused by the implementing agent, which ultimately affected the outcome of the department and also contributed in terms of the irregular expenditure that is disclosed in the financials of the department. So we are recommending that the department should conduct proactive reviews of the SCM processes that is actually carried out by the implementing agent before the contracts are actually awarded. And there should be effective monitoring that is conducted in this regard on a timeless basis to make sure that there is consequence management that is actually undertaken. We also performed an assessment in terms of the controls relating to the financial statements, and of course, as I've already indicated for Umalusi, we have assessed the controls to be working effectively in that regard, as there were no misstatements that were identified. However, when it comes to the department and the SACE, we had identified instances of the limitation of scope as far as the proper record keeping is concerned, instances of daily and monthly reconciliations that are not performed, or controls relating to the reconciliation that are not actually conducted, the in-year and year-end reporting, which speaks to the review of the financial statements by all the relevant role players in this regard that was not necessarily affected, as we were able to pick up material misstatements in the conduct, in the audit of the financial statement. And also in terms of the review and monitoring compliance with laws and regulation in as far as financial statement is concerned. In terms of the quality of the financial statements, we indicated that in the current financial year, only one entity within the portfolio that was able to submit the financials that were free from any material misstatements. However, after we audited and allowed the auditees to adjust in their financials, all the three were free from any material financial misstatement. When it comes to the financial health, we indicating that it takes the department about 1,688 days to be able to collect the amount that is actually owed to them. So it's approximately 5 years period. So specifically this relates to the finalization of final accounts. You will find that in the books of the department, we have so much of the schools that have been completed over the years, but they are still sitting as part of that. And based on the assessment that would have been done by the department, they would have indicated that in some of those schools, there is amount that is actually owed by the contractor to the department that they needed to pay. But because of it takes time now to be able to recover, to finalize the financial account so that they can be able to recover. So there's a risk there that the amount might be prescribed. It will be difficult for the department to really be able to get the money back from the contractors that are owing. Also, it puts some risks in terms of the provinces. They are not able to budget properly in terms of the money, maintenance funds that they need to give it to the schools based on the assets that is sitting on the books from their side. And again, in terms of we highlighting the 132 million that is coming from the claims against the department, so those are litigation claims that has been disclosed, and 2.3 million of the amount, the cash shortfall that we have identified based on the calculations that would have been done there in terms of the financial health. When it comes to the compliance with key legislation, in the current financial year, again, we're indicating that there are two auditees that actually incurred that they had a material non-compliance in this regard, which is the Department of Basic Education together with SAIS. So the table at the bottom left, the bottom left, yes, it indicates those areas that we identified the non-compliances. For the department, it was the procurement and the contract management, where there were awards that were actually made to the contractors not to the highest scoring bidders, and there were no justifiable reasons that were given for awarding those awards. Mainly, it's coming from the implementing agents in this regard. Then we have, based on the issues of the errors on the financial statements, which now was not in line in terms of the requirements of the PFMA. So we have highlighted that, which affected both the DBE as well as my SAIS. And again, there is irregular expenditure and fruitless and wasteful that was actually disclosed in the books of the department that they could not prevent as per the requirements of the PFMA. And the effective consequence management, so there are cases there specifically relating to fruitless and wasteful expenditure that could not be conducted in the current financial year. Whereas on the SAIS side, there was the investigation that has been taken place. However, there was no consequence management that was taken against the employees that permitted the irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure that was incurred. And again, from the side of the department, we highlighted the utilization of conditional grants, the non-compliance there with DORA, due to the funds relating to infrastructure that were not actually utilized for the intended purpose in that regard. In the middle tables, the first one deals with the irregular expenditure. Yes, as I've already explained, that due to the non-compliance with the SCM, processes that has resulted to an additional 2.5 million that we have identified in the current financial year. Yes, though the amount is 79.9 million, but most of it is coming from the contracts that had already been declared as irregular in the previous years. So in the current year, it's only 2.5 million that came from the processes that were actually conducted by the implementing agency in that regard. So if you note that it's been the third year now from the same implementing agent actually causing the same non-compliance, if you like, which results to this irregular expenditure that we're reporting. When it comes to the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, you would see that there is an increase from 9 million last year that was incurred to 60.4 million in the current financial year. The amount of about 52 million out of that 60 million was as a result of the projects that were actually given to DBSA to implement in that regard. So DBSA, what they would have done, they would have appointed the contractors. However, they allowed the contractors to appoint their PSP, which somehow created an opportunity for what we call collusion in that regard. So the PSP ended up approving the work that was not actually completed on the ground. So there was a payment that was processed from the side of the DBSA amounting to the 52.4 million that had to be now disclosed or be regarded as a fruitless and wasteful expenditure because there was no work on the ground that spoke to that amount that was spent. And the other portion of 8 million related to the projects where they had to be cancelled due to the duplicate allocation or duplicate implementation, where the province would have already started to implementing that project, only to find out that the department, also the national department, would have already started with their processes from the side to appoint the contractor for the same projects. So therefore, from the side of the department, they had to cancel it, and they then had to classify that as fruitless and wasteful expenditure in that regard. So we highlighted that as the inadequate planning, coordination, communication between DBE and the PEDs resulting to this duplication of implementation. So in terms of the consequence management, we have seen a significant progress in this regard, especially when it comes to irregular expenditure. As you see, Chair, that we have a balance of 6.1 billion rand of irregular expenditure, which has already been investigated by the department. Just a portion of it that they have not, that they still need to deal with it, which is the 2.1 billion, where the disciplinary process is still in progress, especially from the side of the implementing agents. So from this department, they need to make sure that they hold the implementing agents accountable to make sure that they expedite the process. And also the 4 billion rand that is sitting with Treasury for it to be condoned in that regard. Then for fruitless and wasteful expenditure, 176 million has been dealt with already. There's been an investigation. Consequence management has already been meted out. We have about 7 cases that are still in progress, and the 3 cases that were not investigated amounted to 29 million, which also contributed to the material non-compliance that we reported in this regard. When it comes to performance reporting, I indicated that on the sales side that we identified in the current financial year, that's the only one that we had material findings that we identified on the portfolio. The material findings actually related to 2 indicators that speaks to the investigation of the misconduct by the educators, where they could not provide credible supporting evidence there in terms of those investigations that would have been conducted in that regard. And from the side of the department, we have noted that great improvement in terms of performance information, where they have included now all the indicators in terms as part of their APP. In terms of the governance and institutional capabilities, we highlighted, because we have done an assessment in terms of the work of internal audit as well as the audit committee, which is aligned to the treasury regulation as well as the terms of reference and also the plans that they had for the financial year. We assessed the report in terms of the plans that they had. We noted the deficiencies that they highlighted to management. However, we noted that there was inadequate processes or actions that were taken by management to address the findings that were highlighted in that regard and the recommendations that were put forth by management. And when it comes to institutional capabilities, we highlighting the fact that the department was given a mandate to assist in terms of the backlog of infrastructure in that regard, which necessitated to capacitate the infrastructure unit, which they did with the implementing agents. They further appointed the PSU to assist in terms of overseeing the work that is done by the implementing agent. However, we have noted some deficiencies which then indicate that they still need to put some further processes in terms of improvement of the project management and oversight. In terms of material irregularity, Chair, I'm not going to go through in terms of the definition again, King Paper, just go straight to the ones that we have identified. Since we started or implemented the process of MIs for the department, we raised 5 MIs which have already been dealt with by the accounting officer, and also the controls that were put in place to prevent those not to occur again. However, in the current financial year, we have identified material irregularity in relation to the call it substantial harm, where we have noted quite a number of sanitation projects that were not completed when we conducted our reviews. However, we're still in discussion with management in terms of the actions that have been taken since we conducted our our verifications up until now. So, as a recommendation to the executive authority around the issues that we have picked up, especially the ones that are relating to the infrastructure, because you would see that the infrastructure, the issues that we're talking about, especially when it comes to basic education, are on infrastructure, be it the SCM, the financial statements, as well as the compliance with laws and regulations. So we are highlighting that it would be beneficial for the minister to ensure that the accounting officer ensure accountability by holding implementing agents accountable in that regard. Just to move, Chair, to the audit outcome for the provinces, we have again put forth the recommendation in this regard that they needed to make sure that they implement it to improve the audit outcomes. All of these are still in progress, so I'm not going to go through all of them. So in terms of the audit outcomes for the sector, it remained the same for all the provinces after we have seen the improvement on two provinces, PEDs, which is Eastern Cape and Limpopo. We have seen a regression in Gauteng as well as the Mpumalanga. So just to indicate, Chair, perhaps just to skip and to indicate the areas of the qualification in terms of the KZN, there was an issue in relation to the irregular expenditure. We have also noted an issue on Mpumalanga relating to employee cost where the information could not be provided to support the payment of the allowances that were made in that regard. We have seen an issue again in Northwest relating to immovable tangible capital assets, the accounting for it in the books, which was not supported by credible supporting evidence. Irregular expenditure, which was not disclosed in the financials of the department. And again, we have assessed the controls in this regard. You'd see that for 4 provinces, we highlighted that they are poor and in terms of record keeping, and in year-end monitoring, there were about 5 provinces where we have actually identified significant control. When it comes to performance information, this is where the sector is not doing so well. You would have seen that there was a regression from last year, where last year it was only 1 province that did not have material finding on performance information. In the current financial year, all the PEDs actually had misstatements when it comes to the audit of performance information. So mostly could not provide the credible supporting evidence that supports the reported achievement in the APR. We have noted also the exclusion of the critical indicators in the APPs of the departments relating to MTSF, ECD, NSNP, learner transport, as well as infrastructure. So in terms of the, again, compliance with laws and regulations, still remain a challenge there across the provinces around the procurement, the strategic planning and performance, as well as the irregular expenditure there. In terms of, again, the procurement and the contract management, we have seen a regression around that. You'd see that based on the issues that we identified in this area, they contributed to the spark or the exponential increase that we have noted when it comes to irregular expenditure for the sector. So when it comes to unauthorized expenditure, so there were 3 provinces that actually incurred the unauthorized expenditure, meaning that the expenditure actually exceeded the amount budgeted for. It was specifically on Program 2 relating to compensation of employees. We have also noted in KZN that it was also exacerbated by the late termination of employees on the system. So it ended up having some overpayments in terms of the salaries, the payment of hostel allowances to ineligible employees, and the payments that were made to ghost employees in that regard. So irregular expenditure has increased from 1.5 billion to 7.1 billion due to the non-compliance with the SCM prescripts. And also we have noted some additional payments that were made to the contractor, to those multi-year contracts that were declared irregular. So in terms of the observation, we have noted, highlighted there those areas where they contributed to mainly the contracts that we would have identified the non-compliance on. Then the fruitless and wasteful, mainly it was the late payment of invoices. And when it comes to the consequence management, we have not seen much in terms of the movement in this regard, as there was no much that was done by the provinces to deal with the fruitless and wasteful, as well as the irregular expenditure that had been reported over the years. So one of the reasons that they are giving is because of they have the capacity constraints, and in some provinces we could not get the supporting evidence to support the consequence management that they would have instituted. So in terms of the fiscal pressure, so basically the consequences of those areas, or the impact of those areas, it's a poor payment practices that we have noted, the unfair and uneconomical procurement practices, inadequate needs assessment and project management. We have seen limited benefit received from the money spent, especially on the infrastructure projects. So I'm just going to quickly move to the material irregularities. So in the sector as a whole, for 9 provinces, we have communicated about 43 MIs, 24 has been dealt with. So we have about 9 where we had to take further actions after the accounting officers could not address the MIs that we've been communicating over the years. So in terms of the service delivery, so this slide just to highlight the progress that has been made in trying to achieve the MTSF indicators. So there are those specific indicators that we are concerned about that are still not yet achieved within the sector. But the Chair, I'll just hand over to Doc just to take us through the other areas of service delivery. Thanks.
Okay. Which identified 9 key areas. You'd see it start with basic functionality of a school, and then for that school, for that to happen, we need leadership, management, and governance within that school. And then there are all those areas, starting with infrastructure provision, school safety and discipline, learning resources, curriculum, educator development that we have done. We have issued some sector, we have in the past have issued some findings there, and then you'll see the recommendations that we are doing. For this current year, the next slide shows that we have done teacher development, which gives you a little bit in detail of what we have done. And you can see there that what we found is that within the schools, the individual teacher development needs are not consistently identified using the QMS in terms of them being addressed. Teachers need to record their training in their continuous teacher professional development, and we found that not all of them, so we are not able to see all the interventions that teachers would have attended. And then we also are looking at an opportunity where provincial education should be using skills development levies to address teacher development needs, but in most instances we find that it's not used for that purposes, and also that there is a strategy, teacher development strategy that would have outlined what are the key areas that needs to happen, and we are identifying areas like provincial teacher development institutes not being implemented in all the departments that have been, and also the teacher development interventions that are not effectively evaluated to see what is happening. And we are saying that one of the critical areas that we are identifying in our schools is that they are not using basic annual management processes to address the challenges that they're experiencing. This requires them to do school self-evaluation at the end and see what are the challenges they need to put in a school improvement plan, which needs to indicate what needs to be addressed, the actions that needs to be addressed, and at the end of the year, they need to have an annual academic performance report that would tell and say that these are the areas we've achieved and these are the areas that we are having. But similar there, the districts, it's not reviewing the documents as they come there to see what support they should be able to give to the schools. And we are looking at the SASM's modernization to be able to alleviate the burden of principals to do manual documents in terms of completing, that if it was done online, it would be very much important because they would not be overburdened by doing all these documents manually. And if you look at the next area that we've looked, it's early childhood development. And in there, we are looking at the critical areas there, that there has to be a health report, because at centers, health is very, very important for learners. And also, we're looking at the LTSM, learner teacher support material, that learners would not, that would help them in the ECD centers. Facilities as well are very important, safe ablution facilities and others. We identify that there are challenges in those areas, and also the qualification of practitioners that need to help teachers in the center. So that's basically the areas that we are doing. We are recommending a number of that the system should enforce mandatory health inspection, and then ensure timely distribution of learner-teacher support material, as well as improving the qualification of teachers. And lastly, upgrading the infrastructure of the center. The next slide then takes you to the learner transport, and we are identifying challenges as well there, but what we are saying is that there's not much monitoring of learner transport at the school, and this also would include districts and PED. Because if we continuously see transport that overload, some are unroadworthy, they arrive late, and there are instances where learners are not picked to attend the schools. So these are some of the issues that we've identified in the terms of, if you look at the recommendations that we are giving, that there need to be intensive monitoring and oversight on the scholar transport, both at school and at PED level. The two must be talking to each other, so that there's a smooth scholar transport for learners. And the next one talks to the National School Nutrition Program. We have been doing that, and we continuously are identifying some challenges within the school. Some relates to the stock management. Schools would not be using a correct process of stock management. We would have other food items that would not have been included in the stock register, and some of them would not be used according to the time that they have received, which means that some may even get not being healthy by the time they are using those national schools. And we are saying that within the schools there needs to be a NSP coordinator and a committee that will be able to overlook at it and be able to timely address challenges as they are taking place. And as you can see from our recommendation, the sector should monitor very much the inclusion of MTSF indicators, and then also strengthen the monitoring and reporting framework for the food delivery, preparation, storage, and also when it's served to the learners. These are the service delivery areas that we are looking at it. Maybe, Kola, you can take the rest.
Thanks. Chair, I'm not really going to go through. In terms of this slide, I think we have already spoken about the issues relating to infrastructure. So it was just the other observations that we have made based on the visits that we conducted at the school. So I'm just going to skip this slide.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members, the Minister, the DM, the DG, and the senior management, as well as the colleagues. In terms of the information technology, we looked at 2 areas. We reported them in 2 parts. So we were looking at the e-learning. So e-learning basically is the use of technology to deliver the learning content and the resources to the learners, as well as enabling the teachers to be able to deliver the content. But some of the issues that we identified when we were looking at and going through the schools, we identified that there were issues around the implementation of e-learnings, especially in the Northwest Province, where the roles and responsibilities were not clear, because you find that there is IT that is involved, as well as the curriculum that is also involved. So it was also not enabling them to execute this learning, this initiative properly. And you find that there is also issues around the connectivity, where the teachers were also even using their own data so that they can also be able to connect the learners. But also in the Northern Cape province, we found that there were issues around there were robotics tablets that were distributed, that were given to the schools, and it was then not distributed to the learners because they did not have teachers that are able to actually teach that subject, and therefore that resulted in them putting them in the storage. Some they were actually even sitting in some of the premises of those learners. The other area that we also looked at, it was mainly around in the Eastern Cape province. When we went to the Eastern Cape province, there were data that was procured for the learners. It was amounted to 6 million, and it was not actually given to the learners so that the learners can be able to access their devices via that. The other area that we also found, it was mainly on the e-education strategy in the Northern Province, that they were, they did not have the strategy, and in the Gauteng Province and the Free State, it's just that the strategies that they have now, they are outdated because they were designed in the past 5 years and is no longer relevant and be able to be implemented. And the second area, it was on e-government, where we're looking at the use of technology in improving the service delivery. So we're looking at the SASM's project, the SASM's modernization. Yes, last year we recommended that because there was no enough funding or budget that was allocated, and the province did come and pledge on that, and some of the provinces did pay, including the basic education. But because of that, it actually delayed the implementation of the project, because mainly the department was mainly reliant on the donor founders. But then that resulted in them not being able to implement the project at the time that was. So at the moment, it has been delayed by a year. But with the funds that has been given to them now, we will still assess and see if whether they will be able to implement the system in next year when it's supposed to be implemented. The other issues around the cyber security, we've looked at security. There's still some security vulnerabilities across the sector, where there is the department are vulnerable due to some legacy systems, because there are the systems that are currently run by the department or by the sector, they are very, very old, and therefore they are no longer being patched. Some they are not even compatible to the systems that we are currently doing. So we are still highlighting the issues that are there, because that is then also impacting the sector in terms of the delivery. We're also looking at the infrastructure system. There is an infrastructure facilities management system that is used across the sector, and that system is then used to also manage the project, so that they will be able to know when is the project, then that click of the button, they are able to know what project is run in which provinces. But at the moment, this year, we found that all the system, that now they've managed to roll out all the system in all the provinces. However, the province is not adequately using that system, because we were comparing the projects that started in the current year and just checking if whether those projects are actually captured in the system. But we could not find those projects that are there. So it's the one that we are encouraging the sector that please use that system, because then it's going to then eliminate some of the issues that we are having across the sectors when coming to the projects and managing the project, and be able to pay the service providers when the project has actually been completed. So I'm going to just pause here, Chair. The other ones is just the recommendations, the root causes. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Chair, I think as a recommendations, based on the observations that we have brought forward to the committee, we recommended this to the executive authority as well as the accounting officer, that it is vital to promote the inclusion of all the indicators in the APPs to encourage the achievement of the planned target, to ensure collective sector delivery and service delivery, and also to encourage the minister and the DG to continue guiding and leading the sector in strengthening the coordination, guiding the department in strengthening the coordination in terms of the sector priorities, to ensure the effective implementation of the planned initiatives such as the NSNP, scholar transport, all those deficiencies that were reported in that regard, to enhance the accountability and boost the effectiveness of the program delivery at the local level. And number 3, the sector leadership should prioritize acceleration of the modernization of the SASMs that Utlo was talking about, to improve the capture, the review and the consultation of the reports on the annual management processes, school finance management and education facilities management. And they should exercise a close oversight over the implementation of the key sector areas highlighted in this report. This will ensure that the responses to identified internal control weaknesses are tracked, monitored, and effectively addressed. And lastly, the importance of strengthening the controls around the dealing with the consequence management to make sure that we deter the employees from incurring the further non-compliances that we have been observing throughout the sector. And in terms of our overall message to the committee is to ensure that the committee in your monitoring and your regular follow-ups that you normally do with the executive authority together with the accounting officer, you also need to ensure that you strengthen the coordination of the key sector priorities, promoting the inclusion of those relevant indicators in the APPs and encourage the achievement of the planned targets to ensure collective sector delivery of services. And lastly, to monitor the progress that has been made in terms of the modernizing the education information system, including the systems such as the SASMs and the rollout of the education across all the provinces. Let me give it to the PE just to do the
Thank you so much, Chair. I think in summary, right, so in the basic education sector, you are going to get, call it maximum benefit when you are well coordinated, right? So there is a benefit in going back to how we used to be. You know, when you customize indicators and the provinces adhere to including them in their APPs, because some of these indicators, as they come from MTSF, there is a collective objective that we are trying to achieve. So it doesn't help if Western Cape as a province or Limpopo as a province choose not to include indicators that speaks to nutrition. Because yes, you're going to deal with nutrition, but you're not dealing with it as a strategic focus, such that your performance depends on it. So you have some of these provinces that the indicators are there. So as a sector, you have them, you put them as a MTSF. As a country, we said for us to succeed as education, these are the indicators that will drive us forward. But if I choose as a province that I'm not going to include it in my APP, I'm already sending sentiments that my focus may be elsewhere. Of course, we can debate on whether you are doing it or not, and that's besides the point. The point is that it has to be your strategic focus. So if scholar transport is that which supports the process of teaching and learning, and it is vital for us, especially for Quintile 1 and the likes, you ought to have it as a performance measure, as that PED, meaning a provincial education department, and therefore it will cascade and go down in terms of the performance of the relevant officials that are working with it. So for us, the customization of the basic education sector is what will give us a mileage. And I guess that's where we are indicating that as a portfolio committee, we ought to support the department in making sure that all 9 provinces, we are moving in the same direction, and not one of us is believing that they can drive their own focus, not neglecting some of the things that may be provincial specific, of course. Let me leave it there and just thank you for the indulgence you afforded us. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the team, the comprehensive report. I know members are dying to delve into this report. I'm dying myself. I can't wait to delve into the report. But I thought as a better approach, members, I want to afford the DPE an opportunity, 10 minutes to comment before we delve into this. It's really it's a serious opportunity for you to close the gaps that we've seen, so that perhaps you preempt our questions and you respond to them, so that we don't have a long session of missiles coming to the DPE. I'm giving DPE an opportunity to comment on these key highlights in the report. There's key areas that are, of course, very concerning as they relate to DPE itself, but also the sector, the provinces. So I'm going to allow DPE Minister, you lead that response, and then we then take hands and questions from members.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'll make some remarks and some key takeaways, I think, from the AG's report. Firstly, I think we just want to thank you to the Auditor General for the presentation and their continued support that they provide to the department and, in fact, the sector, so that we can have sound financial management, governance and accountability. The department welcomes the unqualified audit opinion for 2024-2025, which is maintaining its fifth one in 5 years, in the fifth consecutive year. I think it's very important for members to also note that we don't think that this is a sign of perfection, but I think it's a sign of progress, particularly in some areas, in a system that is increasingly maturing, but in a system that is increasingly under great financial pressure. But we also take note, members, of the matters of emphasis that were raised, particularly concerning for me, one, the procurement irregularities as it pertains to implementing agents, where awards were made to bidders who did not score the highest points, material misstatements on financial statements that were corrected before finalization, and obviously, very key, the delays in consequence management relating to irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure. So those are the things that I think when we had our engagement with the AG were some of the things that members we've taken on board. Because ultimately what's important is that we must note that the AG's report is a mirror to us, and it's an opportunity for us to correct where things are not going well. We've also noted that irregular expenditure has declined sharply from 955 million in 2022-2023 year to 200 million in 2024, and now to 68 million in 2024-2025. The department's also internal audit unit conducted 19 risk-based audits, 11 management requested reviews, and 70% of prior AG findings were resolved, and the remaining 30% are still being addressed, largely due to the legacy of ASIDI and implementing agent matters. We also acknowledge that while significant progress has been made in strengthening the control environment, there are still capacity constraints that we're dealing with, particularly in supply chain management and certain provincial reporting functions. There are areas that have been prioritized by our audit action plan, which are being integrated in branch performance and agreements. And I think that's quite important, members. As I say, the work of the AG is an opportunity for us to look at it as a mirror and see where we can strengthen our own system. Chairperson, the Audit Committee also recommended several critical improvements to the department, which we are currently acting upon. Number one, we are acting on strengthening the quality assurance of reported performance information. Number two, we are enhancing strategic planning and reporting units' capacity to ensure timely and accurate submissions. Number three, we are also tightening project management and contractual accountability for implementing agents. Members, I think you will see, and you would have seen in the AG's report, that a lot of what has gone wrong where it comes to financial management in the sector is because of infrastructure. And infrastructure in particular around implementing agents. And in fact, when we had our engagement with the AG, one of the things that I asked personally is to say, how do we hold implementing agents accountable for contractors who walk off site? Because ultimately that affects our ability to be able to have a clean bill of health when it comes to our finances. And even though the infrastructure grant is going to be leaving DBE and is now going to be sitting with provinces, I can assure you, members, that it's not necessarily comfort for me, because the issues we've been dealing with implementing agents in the DBE will be the same issues that provinces will be dealing with. And so the sector is still going to be dogged by this very issue. And so it's going to be important that we tighten our own project management processes to understand how do we hold implementing agents accountable. Because ultimately, as I say, it does affect our performance. The department's risk maturity level has also improved from 3.7 in 2022-2023 to 4.2 in 2024-2025, I think, which is a reflection of a proactive approach to risk management and oversight. And I want to also assure the members of the House that we remain committed to achieving a clean audit outcome, not just as a compliance target, but as a reflection of effective governance and stewardship of public funds. Members, accountability in the DBE is a shared responsibility, because as the DBE, while we may have an oversight role in the provinces do enjoy legislatively a lot of independence and a lot of powers. And the AGSA has spoken quite a bit about the uniformity of some of the targets that makes it easier for the sector to work in lockstep. And I think it's going to be important as we're planning for our APPs and our 5-year strat plans going forward, that we make sure with the planning of the provinces that there's greater synergy and there's greater alliance between the targets that we set at the national level and the targets that the provinces set. So once again, I just want to appreciate the AG and the Audit Committee for their oversight and the work that they've done in assisting us. I don't know, Deputy Minister or DG, if there's anything you'd like to add.
No, thank you very much, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, Honourable Minister and Deputy Minister. The Minister has covered quite a lot. Just to embellish maybe 2 or 3 points. In terms of consequence management against implementing agents, every financial year we write to every implementing agent requesting heads of implementing agents to act. In instances where they don't act, we cut doing business with them. We don't do business with IDT anymore. We've stopped, I think, also doing business with NECT. We allocated them projects only once. We said, never in our lifetime will we ever do business with you. I've also reported them to their board because we have a privilege of serving in their board. I reported that to the board. The board has taken measures to put a team in place to mop up some of the problems, because the new material irregularity that the AG talked about comes from the NECT. So that's the action that we have taken. DBSA, for instance, but including the NECT, they have fired their teams, management teams. I've lost count as to how many times. But it doesn't bring pleasure to us, because, for instance, there are repeated findings, as the AG correctly pointed out, allocating projects to bidders that are not, bidders that are the highest. So we are saying even the new people that you employ are committing the same mistakes. So the best thing is to cut doing business with you completely. And then in terms of delivery issues of the sector, as the Minister said, they are in my performance agreement, the performance agreement of all DDGs, and we're looking at strengthening even that as well. But we also meet with provinces and talk to them. And I think part of the reason why we are not qualified on performance information. All provinces are qualified on performance information. And the reason is because they chose which sector indicators they want to implement from the whole lot. Then AG went for them. Consistency review exposed them, and we discussed it in our last HEDCOM meeting, that with the new indicators of the medium-term development plan, we are now going to implement all of them. There is an agreement in the sector. I thought I could just, the last one, fruitless expenditure. I don't think it's about planning. I think it was deliberate. And it's Limpopo that did that. We took schools under SAFE, like we do with KZN, Eastern Cape. They decided to implement another implementing agent. And when I approached them, they refused to relent. They felt that the implementing agent that they had appointed was going to do work faster than us. I even approached National Treasury and said, I want to recover this fruitless and wasteful expenditure from their allocation before I transfer to them. National Treasury refused. Then I've taken the decision that we will not assist them in future again. They'll have to sort it out on their own, because they can't be appointing implementing agents when we have implemented, when we have appointed an implementing agent already. So that's how fruitless and wasteful expenditure happened. They are the ones who gave us schools, projects, and later on they also appoint, and that's how fruitless and wasteful expenditure happened. I just thought I must just clarify that one. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister and DG. Hence, Mamkaba, Honorable Mkadi, Honorable Mkize, Honorable Ngobeni, Honorable Makakula. In that order, Mamkaba.
Angibonge Chairperson, siyayimukela ke ne document kaMcwaningi Mabhuku, but ke Chair nginenkinga yokuthi ngiphinde ngibonge nema remarks ka minister angikho right bakithi sengizophuma nje, but ke ngifuna ukubuza la ekutheni as much as sikwemukela Mcwaningi Mabhuku ipresentation yakho, ngifuna ukubuza ke la ukuthi kulabo bantu enibabona ukuthi basebenzisa ngendlela engekho right, basebenzisa gwenxa imali zikahulumeni, nalabo minister othi ama province ajabulela ukuthi amele kulokho kuzimela kwabo, kwenzakalani ngezikolo? Ngoba sithola ukuthi KwaZulu-Natal sekukhona izikolo nje ezingadli ezingenakudla ngayo le ndaba okujabulela kwabo ukuzimela ukuthi bayazenzela izinto, kodwa manje imali asebenzi ngendlela efanelekile. Ngabe ke kikho konke lokho kwenzakalayo ngoba phela ku-affect abantwana ezikolweni, emagumbini okufundela. Njengoba konke lokho kwenzeka, bangaka sebeboshiwe enibabophayo ngale mikhuba abayenzayo ngemali kahulumeni? Nanokuthi ke njengoba uDG DG ukuthi bayaxoshwa neyabaxosha, uma nibaxosha nithola kanjani lezi imali abazimoshile? Ngoba phela kufanele imali ibuye, ngoba abantwana lezo mali suke zi-allocated-elwe abantwana. Ngicabanga ukuthi uzongisiza kutolika ngoba ukhona lapha emuva ngimbonile anicacisele kahle ukuthi bengifuna ukuthini. Kodwa nje ngifuna ukwazi ukuthi bangaka ababoshwayo kubantu abasebenzisa gwenxa imali zikahulumeni, nokuthi ke abazibuyisayo bangaki enibabamba ngaphambi kokuthi nibaxoshe ngoba lento yokubaxosha ukubaqhelisa phambi kwenu nje but imali zona azikho bahambe nazo into ebalekile umuntu akabanjwe mangaba nifuna ukumvalela akakhokhe imali ke zikahulumeni zibuye zize kubantwana ngoba uhulumeni benika abantwana ngiyabonga.
The interpreter.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, thanks for the report. We really accept the report, but from the Auditor General. Now, what I would like to know regarding the people who are misusing the funds of the government. Those people, you say they are independent, but what I would like to know is, since they misuse these funds, how many have you reported to the police, and how do you recover those funds before you fire them, because they must, in a way, pay back that money? Thank you very much.
Is the department respond to that question?
Yeah. Yeah, now, thank you very much. In instances where money has been lost, we do recover. There was an instance where irregular expenditure involved the TMT, the Mvula Trust. All the money that was with the Mvula Trust was recovered to the department. I can't remember the exact amount, but maybe the CFO can help me. All that money was recovered. Irregular expenditure, I'm sure we all know, there are instances, what we do, you investigate. Internal audit investigates every case, and where...
What is it? Is it an order?
Yes, Chair, I find the response very careful.
No, but
It will assist, Chair, if you say out of X amount of money that have been stolen, you have moved to this far and this how.
That is not a point of order. That is you engaging with the response. Let's allow, if you have a follow-up question on the response, you can ask a follow-up question, okay. But that is not a point of order. Continue, TG.
Well, out of the irregular expenditure that we experienced, there was one case where money was lost, only one from the investigation, which is the one that I've referred to, Chair, and all that money was recovered by the department. In other instances, there was no indication from the investigation that money was lost. Thank you very much.
You want to ask a follow-up question on this question, and then we're going to allow you to ask questions again. I want to understand, because we will all have follow-up questions. So if that is a rule that we're agreeing on, we must then agree that we will only allow one follow-up question on another person's follow-up question. Because this was Mam Kiz's question.
So, Chair, we are not expected to engage the reports to the committee. We should just take what they are saying and move on.
No. Your hand is up and you are noted to speak. So what do you mean you're not expected to engage with the presentation?
I'm saying I will not have a chance to engage the presentation since I followed up on the...
No, I want us to agree. If we want to agree that we are going to have follow-up questions on another member's question, because this is Mam Kizo's question, and the DG has responded. If you've got a follow-up, you can include it in your own questions.
Okay.
That's what you can do. But if we are going to allow to all of us have follow-up question on another member's question, then we must agree, and we must agree how do we deal with that, because then everyone is going to have a follow-up question on everyone's question.
Can I be clear, Chair? Are you saying... Chair.
Okay, Honorable Law, it's an order. But that is an order. It's an order. The other one is an order of the arriving member.
Yes, I've been following, Chair, because we are streamed one. Two, it becoming a norm that we are going to have a persistent dialogue in between Honorable Keys and the Chair with regard to the rules and stuff. I want us to clearly avoid such and try to move progressively, because particularly as we are committee members who are expected to move the site and make sure we play oversight and not waste our time. So I want to plead that you are respected as the Chair and then we're able to deal with this accordingly, please, Chair, because you can't speak and then Mkize is speaking. This is not going to assist the procedural point of the meeting. That's my order.
That order is sustained, honorable members. When you ask a question and I respond, you have to, and we respond, you raised an order and I said it was not an order. You want to raise a follow-up question on a question of another member. You are noted, you're going to speak. So I wanted members to comment on how do we deal with that, because remember, initially how we deal with questions, we will take all questions and we'll allow the department to respond at once. But we felt that is not perhaps most productive because we will repeat questions. Perhaps let's take a question and respond to question. And that is a new method, a new model that we are trying out. But if you are bringing this, then you must then advise how do we deal with it. Because everyone will have a question and all of us will have a follow-up question on their question. How do we deal with that? You know. So, Honorable Ngobeni.
No, thank you, Chairperson. My view is that some of these things must be organic, because a follow-up question might just clarify where I am. Because I was also nodding. We have similar concerns, right? So the outcome of the AG's report, there are certain concerning things. And my view is that we should be organically dealing with this material, and hopefully it'll take off some of the questions, because I've got like 3 pages of questions on mine. And so my sense is that we don't do it in a stoic fashion where it's question, answer. I think that if there is a follow-up question, it might just clarify my follow-up question. And what that will also do is that hopefully members will be paying serious attention, so they don't ask the same question that had already been responded to. But my view, honestly, Chair, is that let's be organic, but also not be persistent, Honorable Mkize. When your answer is done, I'm sure there'll be other opportunities to make clarifying. But if the question has been asked and there's a follow-up, we should be able to deal with it seamlessly and move on from there. That would be my submission, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, the last hand was Mama Kakula. I saw your hand was up. You are covered by, okay. It's fine. So how we're going to deal, this is how we're going to deal with it, members. I don't think it is going to assist if we allow follow-up questions of all members who raise questions. But what we will allow, if, for example, my hand is not up, I've not raised my hand and I'm not going to speak, but there's a member who asks a question and I have a follow-up, we will allow you. But if your hand is up, we will allow you to raise all your questions at the allocated time. So, Honorable Mkize, you can incorporate your follow-up question on your questions that you have already, because your hand is up and you're going to be allowed to speak. If it was Honorable Sharif, I would allow Honorable Sharif because her hand is not up, so she's not going to get an opportunity to speak. I think that is a balance between being organic and trying to maintain some form of order in the proceedings. So we'll then allow the next person. The next person was Honorable, yes, Honorable Mgadi.
Thank you, Chairperson, and greeting honorable members of the committee, and greeting all protocol observed. Chairperson, okay, I'd like to thank the presentation. According to the report, irregular expenditure in the basic education sector decreased from 188 million in 2023 and 2024 to 79.9 million in 2024 to 2025. What were the primary causes of this irregular expenditure, and what key control failures does the AGSA identify as contributing to this issue? The report indicates that 7 out of 9 provincial education departments, 77.78% were operating with a deficit in the 2024 to 2025 financial year. What are the main factors leading to these financial pressures, and what specific recommendation does the AGS provide to address fiscally sustainability in this sector? Another question to Department of Education. Issue le national school nutrition program. Kuvele ukuthi ufaneke 2026 April 1 iqale isebenze wa appointwa ama contractors azodila nayo ezikoleni. Nikutholile ukuthi kunama members ama officially or MEC aba awadiwe lawo ma program ama khosikazi abo ama girlfriend abo lawo leyo program ikhona indlela engalungisa ngayo i-recruitment okanye indlela yokunikezwa abantu okumele bawathole nama program ngoba futhi phezukwalokho for example KZN unabantu aba awadile from Gauteng, Limpopo, Mpumalanga. U-awade owasempumalanga izikole ezu-15 eKZN. Uhlelo enisebenza ngalo okanye ngaphela i-potential evidence isivelile and ayikho into ekhulumekayo. Ngiphinde ngize lapha kuma special schools eKZN. Uvela ukuthi kuna 76 special schools in KwaZulu-Natal have been told to suspend their operations or completely closed down due to the failure of the Department of Education to pay them the money to keep operating. The West Hills special schools are Truro Pre-Vocational School in Chatsworth, which is already closed down. And Ningizimu School, Special School in Durban, which is struggling to meet basic needs. And Isikwezi Special School in Richards Bay, which has been forced to close amid several financial crises and unpaid teachers and failing service in KwaZulu-Natal. Yes, izikole zabantwana ama specials abadinga special schools. One bastrugglisha ngokubona ngokuphila uJehova indlela aba create ngayo. Manje futhi sebencintwa nethuba ke lokufunda ke. Nabo labo thisha abafundisa labo bantwana siyazi ukuthi bane challenge kwakhona emaklasini. Ufundisa ingane isuke la ihambe yongena ngaphansi kwedesk iphinde futhi isuke ihambe iphume ishaye omunye at the same time futhi lo thisha kaholi. Ngabe u-department uyimisele ngokuthi kwenzakaleni ngalabantwana ke kuphinde size lapha ka nutrition. Ngiyabonga sihlalo besazophendula.
Okay, can we respond to the question? Oh, the interpreter first. Yes. Can we hear? I am multilingual, so I hear every language. So I just flow whatever language. So I forgot.
So
let's get the interpreter.
Ngicela uku-add kuma questions ami.
Okay.
Ukuthi u-department njengoba kustrugglishwa ngemali. I-audit general owabo kanti umsebenzi uhamba kanjani uma imali iphumele uMr Mkhize anikezwe contract angayiqedi anikezwe imali in France 6 million asebenze 2 weeks ayeke kanjalo aphinde futhi uMr Mkhize anikezwe another contract aphinda nikezwe asebenze ashiya ugandaganda hambi aphinde uphinde futhi uMr Mkhize anikezwe imali udepartment kuyavela cause sesambile uMr Mkhize usenikezwa imali disaster manje ngoba isikole uya
Not me.
lama contractors ayikho indlela yokuthi nithole iauthority enkantolo yokucheck yokuinvestigate iaccount yakhe because ungena imali ezihlukene from department ize.
Okay.
Ngiyabonga.
Hayi Mkhize Mkhize no uyahlupha ngathi Mkhize. Okay. Our interpreter.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm going to only interpret the part that was spoken in isiZulu. On the issue of the feeding scheme, I indicated that by the 1st of April, probably in 2026, they must start to work. You found that in that program, there are officials whose girlfriends have been awarded, especially some schools in KZN, about 15 of them. Now, in KZN, special schools, you find that there are about 76 of them which must close down. Yes, these schools are for the disabled, right? But even the worst part is that even their teachers are not paid. Now, what I would like to know is what must happen to these learners and their teachers? Coming to the issue of awarding tenders. Now, I would like to make an example about Mr. Mkhize, who keeps on receiving tenders, even if he does not complete the project. Is there any other way of maybe that you can use in terms of controlling or awarding tenders? Thank you very much.
Okay, let's respond to that question.
Thank you very much, Chair. Luckily for me, we're still keeping it Nguni, so I don't need the translation as well. But Honorable Mgadi raises a number of, I think, really key points. Some of them were directed to the AGSA, but I think let me just deal with the ones that were directed to the department. The one question that you raised the issue around the school nutrition and some of the awarding of e-contracts to abantu who are politically connected. Firstly, I think I want to agree with you. In the one, ukuze sijonge integrity yale program, it needs to be beyond reproach. The school nutrition program in the department accounts for 10 billion rand a year, feeding over 9 million children every single day. It's a massive undertaking and a massive investment, and we must make sure into bana asijonga ukuhoya kwala mali la mali iya ebantwini kungabikho bantwana bangatyiyo because imali sityiwa ngabantu who are politically connected. I'm assuming you are relating the question to the issue as a KZN apho kukhona investigation. So I had written to MEC with finance, no MEC with education with regards to the matter. MEC with finance, no premier assured me in Domana they are investigating. I think there were about over 200 people who were bidders in that contract. Yes, so that whole thing is being investigated. And then Baza's advisor can go into whether the entire contract will be set aside and whether the process will be started again. But I can assure members in Dobana, on our side, we've asked the province to make sure that they are prioritizing that investigation. So they are currently busy with that, Premier and the MEC, Kalanda Bayeza contracts, the NSNP. Then you also asked the issue around, it's partly directed to AGSA, but I think NAM must and Ngamle Apaglenda by implementing agents, Zobabum Kize, who keep showing up in different ways. And I agree with you in Dobana, because this is actually one of the things that I was asking the AGSA team as well in Dobana. What levers do we have as government to make sure in Dobana, if an implementing agent or a contractor gets work here, and then in Limpopo, they don't finish the work, they walk off site. Why is it that they are able to pop up in other provinces? Banikezwe i-contract futhi ngurhulumente lo rhulumente uyi-one. And there are some levers that we can pull in terms of what Treasury can allow us to do. Things like blacklisting implementing agents and contractors. Things like blacklisting contractors and implementing agents. Ukwenzela ba ubangaba umuntu akawenzanga umsebenzi e-Eastern Cape akanophinda afumane enye contract e-KZN aphinda afumane the same kind of business from the state, because ultimately we are government and we should be able to say lo muntu lona is red flagged. They can't be trusted with public money again. They can't be trusted with public work again. So these are some of the things that esifuna uzenza kangangoko. Njengoba uDJ ebetshilo earlier, there are some implementing agents esingasazisebenzisiyo anymore. But I want us to take a step further. Singathi thina as DBE asibasebenzisi. I want us to take a step further. Sithi not just thina as DBE, urhulumente entirely shouldn't use people who can't be relied on. Shouldn't use people who don't use public money to do what they need to do. And so I just thought maybe mandiphendule ezo zinto zibalulekileyo, because those are the ones I think particularly concern me, because I share your frustration. But not we can say tinas basebenzisi, but it should mean in disaster shouldn't use them either. Social development shouldn't use the same people because they can't be trusted. So I just ask the okay.
Minister, before TG, I just want to confirm a question, Honorable Member. How many special schools are closed? One, or I got it correct?
Chatsworth are already closed.
Yes.
And then Ningizimu are struggling to pay them.
Or it's one that is closed.
But the department said all 76 special schools in the KZN have been told to suspend their operation.
Oh, okay.
Because imala yikho.
Okay.
Is that true?
Yeah, I wanted to get that point clearly, because we only know of one that has been closed, but she mentioned the 70-something. But as we indicated, good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. I didn't greet you all. Good morning, Minister. Good morning, PE and your team, and our officials. I'm opening my mouth for the first time. No, the issue of the finances of KwaZulu-Natal is not only special schools that are affected. All our schools are affected. So want all of us to understand that. But we are attending to the matter. The Minister, the Premier, and the two MECs of Finance. We have even involved the President on this matter and the National Treasury, so that we come and rescue KwaZulu-Natal. It's a serious challenge. It's affecting all our schools, especially quintile 1, 2, 3. We don't want to hide this, so that you know that we have this challenge in KwaZulu-Natal. Yes, all provinces are affected, but KwaZulu-Natal is, the challenge is severe to an extent that if we don't rescue KwaZulu-Natal, it might collapse. Maybe I can say it has partially collapsed. Partially collapsed. But we are attending to the matter. So the DG will respond on the one school that is closed. So the issue that was asked by Honorable Kaba, which partially Honorable Mkadi asked, is the independence. Remember, provinces are established in terms of the constitution. They have their legislature and their premiers who appoint MECs. And the minister does not have ultimate authority over MECs. It's the premier that has an ultimate authority of, and the legislature of provinces. So we work concurrently. We don't supersede them. We work concurrently. That's why we have structures at all levels, at the political level where the minister chairs the Council of Education Ministers, the DG chairs the HEDCOM with HODs, and the technical teams where we share the issues that we must operate as one system. Though South Africa is a unitary state, but provinces are established in terms of the constitution. So we don't play a very big brother. The premier is the big brother in any province. So that's why we have established these structures that we work together, we share the common purpose as the DBE and the provinces. It's not our making, it's the making of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, unfortunately. So even same on the appointment of service providers. The minister will not have a say. Those structures and the committees, the bid committees, are established at a provincial level. So that's why we cannot necessarily be in a position to monitor, to say, don't appoint people from other provinces, but we work together. That's why when there are investigations like now, because it affects national, whether you like it or not, it affects national. Minister must come in, especially when there's a problem. Yeah. Now she must jump in. So that's why she must establish a working relation with the premier of that province, that on issues of education, because MECs report to premiers. So, and like in this one of school nutrition, they are investigating, like the minister has said. Over to DG, with your permission, Chair.
DG.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The school in question is Truro Pre-Vocational School in Chatsworth. And the information that is at our disposal is that school's closed due to insolvency. And it can't be a public school that closes due to insolvency. So we'll definitely have to follow up, and there are about 300 learners' future that is in danger. So immediately after this meeting...
So it's not a special needs school, it's an independent, or is it an independent special needs school?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Not public.
But it's a private school?
Yeah, not public.
Were they receiving any subsidy from us?
That's what we need to establish, Chair.
Okay.
Now, the other issue is that...
But the other one, maybe because the other one on the same question was there is 76 schools that have received a memo that 76 special needs schools that have received a memo that they are going to have to close down.
79.
79.
Yeah.
Special needs school.
Yes, from Honorable Ngai.
Yeah, that's what we want to know. If that is also, can we confirm that?
Yeah, I'll have to follow that up, Chair. I've not done that at the moment. I just thought that I must also give you this information which was asked by Honorable Kaba, that of the total amount of irregular expenditure, what we were able to recover is 21,135,833.99 from the Vola Trust, which involved schools which were part of ASIDI, Mr. Mafo. Yeah. So that's what we were able to recover. But also maybe the last point to add on what the Minister said, which the AG has been asked to provide information by Honorable Mugadi as to what causes irregular expenditure from the presentation of the AG and the report that they've given to us is non-compliance. Irregular expenditure is caused by non-compliance. And in fact, you are right by using the analogy of Ukabaze and say, yeah, Ukabaze, Babun Keys, Honorable Keys, that you give one contractor a project here, the contractor doesn't finish. When they realize that they are in danger, they run away and they go somewhere else. implementing agents complained about that. And I said to them, you need to coordinate amongst yourselves. The minister is saying government must coordinate itself, which is correct. But the procedure is that the affected department has got to motivate and submit to National Treasury for blacklisting of any service provider. And it is implementing agents, it is contractors, it is your PSPs. PSPs are your consultants, your engineers and quantity surveyors, your project managers who are paid for the work that they are doing. So it's got to affect the entire value chain, but it requires all of us to be coordinated. And it is true, in fact, for instance, you find that somebody would do a project with DBE. If we close them down, they go to one of the provinces, when we could have easily informed even the provinces that here is a red flag. When this person comes to look for a job, look at some of these things, because we can't say to them, don't give them a job, but we could say to them, this is the profile that we have, and this is how the person has performed with us. So I just thought that I could add that. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Thank you so much, Honorable Ngadi. I think there is a point you raised that speaks to how well South Africa is coordinated as a country. And we raised this, I think, during COVID as an office, because it was more glary then. When you do business as government, you ought not to take the particular department as your client. You're actually supposed to take the country as your client. So what we are sitting with right now, even in the sector, is that if I'm a service provider and I'm doing work, or I got an award in one particular province, and I mess them up and I mess them up badly, the discipline for that province to go blacklist me in Treasury is lacking. Because that's how you start to correct the posture of service providers. And not only that, there are other service providers that shut down their current operations and show up in a different name, and sometimes even different directors. So you have to be very disciplined in making sure that not only are you submitting a name of an entity or service provider, but you're quite particular around who are the directors that are actually facilitating that. So what we are sitting with right now, not only as a sector but as a country, is the lack of coordination among self, such that we are very intentional that when you do business with government, you're not doing business with the Department of Basic Education in KZN. You're actually doing business with South Africa, call it, limited if it's limited. And therefore, your non-delivery, non-performance, corruption, fraud, non-compliance would actually shut down your aspirations of operating in anyhow. But let me tell you what will enable us to get there. We need as sectors to start advancing our IT mechanisms. These things not need a phone call, because that is not going to happen. We have to start getting ourselves as a country, even as a sector, to the point where I can, at the click of a button, find out who this entity is. Who are these directors, and what is the history in terms of doing business with government? Because that way, not only are you achieving transparency and knowledge and background and reference in terms of their delivery and their posture and their ethics in terms of the moral fiber, but you also making sure that some of the changes that may have been introduced in their system, you comprehend them. I'll tell you now that unless we get to the point where we start advancing the process of consequence management at service provider level, we will not move as a country. In fact, what you will achieve is that they will move out of this education sector, they will go to another sector. You find them in the health sector doing exactly the same. So my submission then, as you guys as part of government, is that we're gonna have to start running these sectors, these departments, as South Africa call it, as an institution. Only that way we'll be able to succeed. Because what causes irregular expenditure is very simple. It's a discipline to follow the prescript. and I will not follow the prescript as a service provider, even as an official of the department, if I know that this thing will wishy-washy fall over at some point. That's why as the AGSA, we are emphasizing the importance of consequence management. Discipline officials, discipline service provider, take them out of the system, and only then it will correct the posture even for many others. Thank you so much.
Thank you, AG. The next speaker was Honorable Mkhize. Yes, it was Mkhize. It was Kabazela before you. Kabazela, go ahead.
Turn on. Thank you very much, Chair, and greetings to AG, thankfully for the report, and departmental officials, and all the honorables in the House. I'll turn my follow-up question into a comment and also give some guidance. But starting with what the AG just said, the department, Minister, I'm happy that you are back, and DM, is not equal, clearly, it is not equal to the challenge you are facing today. The department needs to up its game, clearly. It's either we declare failure by the current officials and they must find other jobs elsewhere, or they up their game, otherwise we will not be able to do what the AG is saying. We are dealing with the most sophisticated criminals today. Highly learned, using learned people. And we know those criminals are politicians who are somehow linked to governing political party. So if we do not sophisticate our systems as the AG says, will not be able to detect criminality. Very systemic criminality is not by coincidence for someone to crocodile here and mushroom elsewhere. It's a modality of doing crime. So if our state doesn't up its game, we will always come back with such reports, Minister, and we'll have to fight amongst ourselves. At the end of the day, this thing must stop. There's a lot of money that is allocated to develop the people in rural communities goes to filthy rich criminals. And I'll come to the director response. My concern about casual responses. The department needs to up its game in terms of how it comes and report to the parliament. Your preparation must be better than what you are doing. You can't be giving us general answers and make random examples that in a corner somewhere we recovered X amount of money. You see in the AG report, there is irregular expenditure amounting to 6.1 billion. That's your baseline. So when you put together a report, be able to say, we're able to recover X amount against the total value lost. That is being specific. That is upping your game. To come and talk to us as if we're having a casual discussion here is not going to help this country. You see that the irregular expenditure has grown to 79 million. You must account on that amount, and that amount is your baseline. To say out of 79 million that was lost through irregular expenditure, X amount of officials of these categories are going through disciplinary processes, X amount of them are already expelled or jailed. That is a substantive reporting. So to come and randomize, it means we don't see the veracity of the challenge that we are facing now. So just to move on, I want to say, Minister, putting it on record, and I'm happy that the deadline I kindly asked you to keep within is the 25th, which is tomorrow. We wrote a letter to the Minister, putting it on record, Chair, where we are concerned about maladministration, poor management processes, and poor planning. And on that letter, we clearly articulate that there are issues of baselines which are incorrect. And I'm happy, completely lost. And I'm happy that the AG report has indicated that, including the performance indicators, which then actually technically nullifies the APP that we are following now. Because it doesn't show clear appreciation and understanding of the baselines across the underperforming areas, particularly on infrastructure. We don't know how many schools that need to be built in South Africa today, how many schools that need to be repaired in South Africa today, how many teachers need to be employed, how many schools need fencing, how many schools need toilets and water. How many schools need security guards? How many schools need teachers? As we are implementing the Bella Act, there's no clear baseline. The numbers which are there, they were thumbsucked in terms of the allocated funds. You can't be developing your targets just from allocated funds. Your targets should be derived from the situation on the ground as your baseline. Then you look at the funds you have, you say, out of this reality, because you've done baseline assessment, this is how much you can do in this period of time. So just to wait for the treasurer to allocate funds, then you make targets. It means you are targeting to underperform against the reality on the ground. This department is under social services, which means our approach should be socialist. And what is a socialist approach? Is to go on the ground and find out how many schools do not have toilets. Don't wait for the budget to give you targets. The reality on the ground must give you the baseline. And from that baseline, you're then able to articulate your targets in terms of your fund limitations and all that. So the letter is actually articulated, Minister, and I hope you'll give me your assurance that it will be responded within the time frame. If not, indicate by when that letter will be reported. Because that letter, honorable members, reflects exactly what was said by the Auditor General report, exactly what was said by the Commission for Gender Equality, exactly what was said by the Financial and Fiscal Commission, exactly what is said by some of the DPE reports. So the letter we wrote to the minister speaks to reality, and it asks for baselines, following proper rationale now, which is looking at the situation on the ground, not waiting for monies to come. Because when you don't do that, you'll not even know how to prioritize your budget allocations, because you don't know where the depth is of challenges. But if you've done proper baseline assessment, you will be able to know where the bigger need is. And so when you ask for money, it's on the basis of the baseline that you have done. You don't develop targets from target within themselves. You develop them from the reality. And not only that, Minister, when you get surprised by funds that come without you expecting them, you'll be able to go back to the baseline and say, oh, we just got a surplus here. Let us go close the gap there. So all what I'm saying simply says, the government is not sophisticating as required to sophisticate in terms of management processes and in terms of oversight that it needs to play. And DM, on the point that you made, that we have no powers to control the premier is the boss, I don't think we are doing justice with that statement. If you go back to the laws, check the powers of the minister, you will see that the minister has a lot of powers to ensure there's proper oversight and accountability by all structures underneath her office. Yes, you may not interfere with the operational processes, but you've got constitutional powers to make sure that those who don't do right account, those who don't plan right account, and those who go astray account. So I want to beg that the department stops weakening itself to allow this perpetual gross underperformance happening. Today, the AG report tells us that the department is underperforming across 4 compliance areas. All of them. You have received 100% performance on non-compliance. And we cannot, Minister, minimize that by saying there was a reduction. That reduction is expressed in billions of rands. Is expressed in hundreds of millions of rands, which can build toilets in schools. So let us look at this thing from a qualitative angle, not a quantitative angle. Don't monitor numbers, monitor the quality. So if you still have irregular expenditure of 79 million, how many schools will be built? If you still have wasteful expenditure of 60 million, accumulating to 6.1 billion, qualitative, that's a concern. It could have changed the people's lives on the ground, but it is not. I see says as well, it's fine, I think the department will deal with says, but I'm more worried about the department which is underperforming across the compliance areas. And I want to say, DG, this thing of saying, priding ourselves and by saying those who have done irregular expenditure where we terminated contract, that's another modality of doing corruption. Because by the time they go, they've already charged 200 million rands. What happens with that money? What happens with the individual as the AG has articulated? So coming back, moving forward, I want to urge the department to ensure that when it comes to report to us, it is substantive in terms of how it reports. You have a proper baseline of a problem and you report against that baseline. Not to do this random examples that we are getting, and they are not assisting us actually. So I will then ask a question as I sit down. Under procurement contracts that were done incorrectly, how many people are facing music for that offense? Under the quality of financial statements that are not satisfying the AG, how many people are facing music for not doing their job? Under prevention of irregular or unauthorized, fraudulent, and wasteful expenditure, how many people are accounting for that situation? And under utilization of conditional grants that are not properly used, some of them are approved late, thus missing the implementation period to change the material conditions. Human beings that are involved, how many of them are facing the music? So those are the questions I want to ask, Director, because we cannot continue to sing music about these things. We want now to know what is being done and how many people are facing music for it. So let me remind you, your undertaking on the letter that we have sent, if it to be responded to as per required deadline that we set for tomorrow, or perhaps it to be responded in due time, since it is validated by all these reports that have been made to the department. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Kize. You're well input. DG, you can take a platform. The question is yours.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. In terms of the conditional grants, our presentation has an explanation regarding HIV and AIDS, where the business plan was not submitted on time. And the reason is because the posts of the relevant officials were vacant in the province that is affected. And because of that, the business plan could not be completed on time. That's the reason for HIV and AIDS. In terms of contracts, in instances where irregular expenditure was experienced, I did indicate that we wrote to implementing agents, which we do every financial year, and we expect heads of implementing agents to act. There are instances where they've acted. I don't have those details with me, but as I've indicated, DBSA, NECT, they were able to even take disciplinary action and fire the entire staff, the program manager, including the project managers of those implementing agents. In instances where money has been wasted, the PFMA says we must recover it. So when we carry out an investigation and we discover that money has been wasted, we do recover it. In all investigations, except for the one that involves 21 million that I've reported on earlier on, there's been no loss at all of money. May I also just indicate that even with contractors, as we allocate projects to them, there's money retained. If they leave money. It doesn't mean that when they run away, there's no money. There are very few instances. In our case, it has not happened. If it happens, then the implementing agent takes the responsibility, because we don't appoint contractors, they are appointed by implementing agents. There is an instance which was reported by the AGSA where some of the projects were not completed, and the DBSA wrote to us to say the expenses that remain in respect of the contractors, the consultants, where the projects were not completed, DBSA was going to cover the cost in full. So we hold implementing agents accountable to cover the full cost, and it doesn't come through the taxpayer. And we can provide more details in that regard. I don't know whether Mr. Mafuku would want to add. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Dichi. The next speaker, Honorable Ngoben.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning again to all members and officials present. I think I am primarily covered by some of the previous comments, but I want to echo by saying that, firstly, that this room is terrible. My back hurts. I can't sit properly. But I want to echo what the sentiments that are shared by the AG with regards to how do you clean up the rot, because clearly the rot is deep, and I think I want to believe that we are in a political moment currently that really can no longer afford to be nonchalant about what has happened, particularly in this space of education. I also want to recognize Minister to say, I believe you are taking a lot of strain. I wouldn't want to be you. I can see it because the concern on your face is there, and I recognize that because this sounds like and seems like, and it is a mammoth task, given that we've had so many years of it not being managed well. I think, colleagues, education is a post-apartheid tragedy, in my view, that we have not been able to adequately provide for it, produce outcomes, outputs out of it, quality of students and young people who really can go out there and conquer the world on our nation's behalf. And that is not to say that there are not some gains made. I would be remiss to say that there haven't been some improvements. But I think that we are in a moment now, 30 years down the line, that we can do better. So I will not repeat some of what my colleagues, particularly Honorable Mkhize, who is not the Mkhize that was alluded to in the examples. I just want to get some clarity on certain things. The first one is with regards to the bureaucracy, DM. It sounds to me that this bureaucracy is really crippling. And if in fact we are now at the mercy of premiers to do some of these things, what then is the alternative? Do we hold them in here so that they can answer for their own provinces? Do you do that in your own state, Minister? Because we can't get an answer that says, almost like roads. People say, I've got potholes, and somebody says, no, it's a provincial road, it's not a municipal road. We can't no longer have such response. I think we need to be a little bit more rigorous around how then do we hold them accountable. If in fact they are circumventing your ability to do your work, then they must be exposed. Whichever premier it is, whichever MEC it is. I mean, I think we are at that moment in our political trajectory in this regard. So I'm very concerned about the blacklisting. And I agree with the AG that people should be blacklisted using IT all the way through the space. But I also want to say that let's clean up this one. If they go to social development or they go elsewhere, let them discover and be blacklisted there. But let them not be able to touch education in whatever way. And I don't know whether that is something that is achievable in the short term and whether there are plans to do exactly that. Because the philosophical conversation, I think, has been had and it's understood. But I want to know what mechanisms you are thinking about as a department to make that happen. So that it moves from being a philosophical discussion to a practical one that we can actually test and be able to conduct oversight for. I I also want to just ask this question around the insufficient performance management across the spectrum, particularly in the provinces, and because they are the ones who set their own matrix, etc. I have a concern, Minister, as to the effects of having members of unions in a school in their uniform running around. Does that not impede upon teachers' ability psychologically to do their work? I've seen this in many schools when we've either conducted oversight or we've been there on our own. I've often wondered what that presence actually does in terms of political pressure that it might put on a schooling system to be able to function. I just want to hear whether teachers are able to thrive without undue pressure, fear or favor. And then on the school nutrition program, and I appreciate the mammoth task that it is and the quantum of cost that it has on our country's ability to sufficiently look after our children. How much of what happens there, and I believe it was one of the gentlemen who was speaking to school nutrition, who was speaking about either rotting stock, etc. How much of that is wasteful and how much of that is as a result of stock theft? And what is in place to deal with things like stock theft? Because we know it happens even with sanitary towels in schools. So I just want to get a sense in terms of the school nutrition program, whether you have challenges in that regard. I think the issue about implementing agents has been sufficiently ventilated. I won't go there, but I want to get a sense and appreciating the recovery that is being done. What is impeding upon charges? Because, I think this country will just want to see charges. We just want to see people being persecuted for the wrong that they are doing. What is the distance between we find you out, we get rid of you as an agent or a supplier or a service provider within the system, we blacklist you, and then we recover some of the monies, but the damage is done. Even if we recover, you've still got to be charged for something. What is the distance between those two realities? Because I think we do need to give the reassurance that we are really turning the corner. And it speaks to the issue of consequence management, AG. I think it goes across all departments, and I think it's a worrying phenomenon. But what do we mean if we move from the philosophical understanding of what consequence management is to the actual holding of people accountable? What does that look like? And I just want to know how the department is strengthening controls around that. And then another worrying phenomenon is, and I think this goes across all government departments, but I want to get a sense from this department what your issues with regards to ghost workers, ghost teachers, ghosts in the system, and how much are you bleeding as a result of those. I'll tell you an example. There are teachers in certain schools who just wake up in the morning, do their washing, and relax. I have a nephew who, would say to me, "I haven't seen my teacher for 3 months." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And this person is in the system, gets paid, has never been to class, but it continues. That's a ghost to me, irrespective of the fact that they are alive. So I just want to get a sense what that is costing the department. And then the report also speaks to 29 million rand that is as a consequence of 3 uninvestigated or instances where investigations aren't yet effected. Can we get a sense as to what that is? What's happening there in terms of that 29 million rand? And then when the department, and that's my final point. Second final point. the discrepancies that are between the department and what is being reported, what is the effort to align so there isn't that discrepancy of reporting, if I can get a sense of that. And then finally, when the department decides to blacklist certain folk, is there a list? Can we know who these people are? Can they be named or shamed? Can something happen? Is there an opportunity to do that as we try to clean up the system? I think that would be. The final one is this one: whistleblowing in the department. Are the mechanisms safe mechanisms, or as close to safe as possible, where there are people, good, hardworking South Africans, who want to see the system working, who are seeing these irregularities happening all over? What mechanisms does the department have in place to ensure that they can bring some issues to light without turning into multiple Babita deoccurrence? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ngobeni, and thank you very much to the interim chairperson. Can we respond to the questions?
I'll kick us off, Chair. Thank you very much, Honorable Ngobeni. And I think perhaps let me start here, because I think that there were two similar themes that came from what you were saying and what Honorable Mkhize had been saying. I think number one, it's important to note that we completely understand the financial position of the department and the sector, and that even a 1 rand lost is simply not good enough, right? This is a 330 billion rand sector, most of which goes, 80% of that 330 billion rand goes to provinces. I think what the DM was explaining is that the concurrent powers of provinces means that, one, we have, besides conditional grants, every single thing that goes to provinces is then decided in what is called an equitable share pot. Provinces have the discretion to spend or what they believe should be spent on education. In fact, there's a spreadsheet where we can see how much of the equitable share each province spends on education. So we can't necessarily say to them, you can't spend this much, spend more, right? That's the first thing. The second thing, and I think again, going back to the DM's point, is that these concurrent functions also mean that the Premier is essentially empowered to be able to say, out of the equitable share, this is how much you will get as the Department of Education. And then there's obviously operational things, as you already said, that we can't necessarily get involved in, which makes it difficult to get involved in. But to a point, though, that you make, and the point I think is an apt one, where you say, well, then, what can you do? What is within your powers then to resolve certain things? I wasn't aware of your letter. I've now been made aware of it, and I will make sure that it's responded to in detail. And the question then that you ask is, to what then mechanism do you have? The mechanisms we have, number one, are conditional grants. Any conditional grants that comes from Treasury, we can tighten conditions and in terms of what provinces can do with that money. So, for instance, the school nutrition program is one such a grant. The EIG, so the infrastructure grant, was one such grant, which is now going to go into the provinces. So yes, there are levers that we can pull working with Treasury, particularly with conditional grants, but not with equitable share. So I think that's where then the concurrent powers comes in. But I also want to just use this opportunity perhaps to also bring members into my confidence, because I think Honorable Ngobeni also speaks about this question. But then what are you going to do? Are you then asking us to bring the premiers here so they can account? So according to Section 8 of the National Education Policy Act, the minister, in consultation with the Council of Education Ministers, can essentially request particular information that is required from provinces and assurances that is required from provinces, whether it is LTSM, school nutrition, scholar transport. And if the province is not living up to what they are meant to be doing, we can request remedial plans, and those plans can actually be tabled here in Parliament to you as members of Parliament. So it's a lever that is in law, that is legislated for. And it's never been used in the last 31 years, but we have to use it if there are certain instances where provinces are not performing. And so that is a commitment that I'm saying to you, that we have to, the drafters of our laws clearly saw it fit to include something like that so that there can be some kind of lever, despite the fact that these are concurrent powers that you can use to say, if provinces are not meeting their obligations, what can Parliament do? What can the National Minister do? And I think working with yourselves, we can demand more from provinces where this is not happening and table those remedial reports here, where provinces then need to update you as members of Parliament on what is not being done. And I agree with you on the issue around consequence management. With the AGSA team, we had a very long conversation about not just consequence management of the implementing agents and the contractors, but consequence management within the department itself. We ourselves need to also say who is facilitating or not, out of ignorance, out of incompetence, out of oversight, whatever it is. We also have to demonstrate a culture of accountability ourselves. So it's not just about holding the external people accountable. It's also about saying who within ourselves, in the department, in the team, in supply chain management, who has not done what they were meant to do, who didn't exercise proper, rigorous oversight. And I think once we really start to turn the culture that says, even amongst ourselves within the department, we have to have consequence management. And I couldn't agree with the members more with regards to that. Then you also asked the issue around unions or even political parties. I want to make also this quite clear. You know, the law is also quite clear about who can have access to schools. Political parties may not arrive, and there have been instances I've seen on social media where there have been political parties and party regalia arriving in schools speaking to learners. That's not allowed. In fact, the Bella Act, which seeks to amend the SA Schools Act, criminalizes anybody who interrupts learning and teaching time in schools. And so whoever, even as a committee, when you go into a school, the idea is that you are there to do oversight but not interrupt teaching and learning time. And so it is not, it is in fact, and as I said, now the Bella Act actually makes it quite clear that it's not just improper, it's actually illegal. And you can be charged for interrupting learning and teaching time. The other question around ghost workers in the system, I agree with you, there's a lot that we can recover from public expenditure once we do this exercise. We are fortunate enough that the ELRC has undertaken essentially a process that they are doing a ghost worker audit for us across the country, across all 9 provinces. The reason why they've done that is because, of course, as I've explained, we find ourselves in a tight fiscal envelope, and we want to see how much we can recover from ghost employees. So they've already begun the process, and so we will be able to, within a couple of months, be able to report back on how many ghost workers we identified, how much money we are able to recover just from that alone. The good thing about the ELRC as well is that they're not only just focusing on ghost workers, they're also focusing on ghost learners. Because in some instances, schools inflate the numbers so that they can get a greater allocation. So we are checking whether are there real warm bodies as per what we are being told. Then the last question that I will handle is the issue around whistleblower protection. I agree with you that, yes, while we must be unequivocal about consequence management, there has to be safe pathways for people to be able to blow the whistle. And the law is also quite clear about what needs to happen and the protections around whistleblowers. But I think more than just the law, there's a perception that you are not safe if you're a whistleblower. And I think there's a culture shift that we need to, as ourselves, I think even within the department, to say, whistleblowers are welcome to be able to blow the whistle on wrongdoing. And as I say, there's laws that protect whistleblowers, but the perception is not necessarily unfounded. The perception is that, will my job be in danger? Will my life be in danger? And I think perhaps we can do a lot more around changing the culture there to say whistleblowers must do what they need to do. So I think I've answered some of the questions. There's a specific question around 29 million where the investigation hasn't started. So maybe you can handle that, DG.
Yeah, Minister, before that, just to add on the question of premiers, Minister has correctly alluded to it, but in the meeting of the Minister and the President, it was also requested, which President agreed, that they put the item education on the Presidential Coordination Committee with the premiers, because they hold those meetings regularly, that education must be a matter, because they were looking at the issues of economy more than education, yet the beginning of any economy in any country is education. So they took that matter serious, that now is a standing matter on the item, because we raise these issues of finances and the unequal allocation of a budget on the equitable share, that some provinces will put 45%, some will put 50%. It's and when some provinces have their own project, might take from education, thinking that education has more money, you find that in other provinces like KwaZulu-Natal, the budget for compensation of employees is around 90%. And when it's 90% in a big system like KwaZulu-Natal, so we are only left with 10% to do everything to support the more than 200,000. I can't even say 200,000, they are more, because they are the biggest system in the country. So to look into all those matters in the Presidential Coordinating Committee, because if it falls, the President also, apart from the Minister, is accountable if education fails.
So sorry, DM. I think perhaps just to go back to what you were explaining about KZN, honourable members, the problem with KZN in particular is a problem that we have looked at over years. What patterns have happened over years? Prior to COVID-19, as with any other province, number one, there has been a systemic underinvestment in education from a national level, in basic education. There was a policy shift in our country where there was far more greater investment in higher education than there was in basic education. So the first question, the first issue, I suppose the original sin is the underinvestment that has been happening over years, and we can track it when we've investigated why is it that provinces are struggling financially. We can track that there has been this a systemic cutting of funds that are allocated to education at a national level. But the problem with KZN in particular, that compounds the matter, is that after COVID-19 in 2020, KZN essentially inflated their staff complement by appointing COVID-19 assistants as permanent workers, when other provinces didn't do that. What the DM is explaining is that now there's a situation where they spend 90%. The actual recommended ratio is 80-20. 80 on compensation of employees, 20% on goods and services. So when issues like what Honorable Ngadi is talking about, where there are constant chronic issues that we experience in KZN, is because we are trying to now help KZN get to a place where they are financially viable and financially in a good, healthy place. But there are some tough decisions that they're going to have to make. And part of them is undoing some of the wrong decisions that they made. years ago, because having done that, it meant that the cost of employee budget has now escalated to 90%. It's gone down now. I think they're sitting at 89. But it really needs to go down a lot more so that they can have more money to be able to do scholar transport, to be able to support and pay subsidies to schools, particularly quintals 1, 2, and 3 schools. So that is the problem currently with KZN, and that's why the DM and the DG and myself went down to KZN to meet with the Premier and the 2 MECs to say, how do we help you with mechanisms, because there's no financial instrument or legal instrument that we have to bail out a province. So there's DBE can't bail KZN out. But what we can do is work with Treasury, provincial Treasury and national Treasury to help them get to a place where they're financially sustainable and they're paying their bills so that learners don't get affected. So that's kind of the state of at play, and that's the ongoing work that we're doing there.
Chair, just 2 requests from what the Minister just said and the DM. The first, that this, I think we welcome this Presidential Coordinating Committee. If we can get a sense as to what is going to be its objectives, because we don't want another Madlanga Commission. So if we can maybe get a sense as to what it's going to achieve. And then maybe in the next meeting, Chair, if we can get a sense as to the wasteful expenditure, I think it's in the quantum of 7.8 or 7.7 billion rand, what has been recovered to date and how much is still under investigation. DG, I'm not expecting you to give us that now, because I know that was one of your issues in terms of the responses. So I think it will be good if we can get a sense, so that we are not speaking in a bubble.
Yeah.
We have actual figures that respond to that. Thanks. But thank you for the current responses. Thanks.
So the Presidential Coordination Committee that the DM was referring to is an existing structure already, where the President chairs a meeting with all 9 premiers. And so they hold it at regular intervals. But as the DM was saying, that agenda was mostly around finances and the economy and things like that. And now we've had, because we went to the President to explain to him the financial situation of the sector, he now recognizes the gravity of the situation, has now put education finances as a standing agenda item in his meetings with the premiers, so that he can also make sure that he holds their feet to the fire. Because ultimately, if they're making bad financial decisions with equitable share, it ultimately affects the sector. So it's not a new thing. It's his meeting that he chairs, but he wants to then hold the Premier's feet to the fire in that sense. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. The blacklisting of service providers, there's a procedure in place from National Treasury which we follow in enlisting service providers that are to be blacklisted. I was trying to check with the CFO whether we can get that list and make it available to you. We'll check whether it could be made available to you, Honorable Chair. NSNP stock theft, we do come across some reports of stock theft, some wastage. And that's part of the reason why we have embarked on the modernization of the NSNP. Like the AG was saying, so that our stock monitoring is done electronically, we're able to see in each of the 23,000 public schools in the country as to what are the children eating on a daily basis. That's part of what the modernization was intended to do, which we have been directed by the minister that from, is it 2027, we need to consider start implementing the modernization of NSNP, where you won't get, Honorable Mgadi, tenders that are issued, by one province to the other, but we centralize, but we make sure that there are certain things that provinces are going to be in charge of. And we procure food from more or less the same supplier from where OK and ShopRite and Checkers are buying from, which will get us economies of scale and be able to cover all learners in the same way in the country. So in short, there are instances of stock theft. We do hear that. People sometimes even report to different gatherings of government. Regarding what is impeding against charges, I have a list here of cases, some of the cases which were reported, which I can make available to you. The internal audit has just shared that with me. Some of the cases which were reported were SAPS in the Eastern Cape regarding the investigation that we did through internal audit, some which were cases reported to Hawks. I've got them here. And the difficulty is that we can only report to law enforcement agencies. There are instances where we get disappointed. We had 10 schools in the Free State where we call on the SIU. SIU investigated. When IDT started pushing back, then SIU decided to then withdraw from the findings and recommendations that we thought they were going to press against the contractors and the Independent Development Trust itself, which is the implementing agent. So we can give you those reports as well, which are available, of all the cases that we've been involved with. So we do report all of these things. We report them to law enforcement agencies. Some cases are closed. We can give you even the ones that they've closed. And then ghost workers. At DBE, we are very small, 752 employees. I can count them every day easily and monitor them. So the problem is in the provinces. The problem is in the provinces, 460,000 teachers. And that's why we've embarked on the head count. And I'm happy to inform your honorable committee chair that that process is about to complete. We had our meeting yesterday to give us an update. Many schools have loaded their staff complements, which is going to help address what Honorable Ngobeni has raised. I've had my own experiences where I met people in social gatherings. They would say to me, you know, I'm waiting for the department to board me. I'm 2 years at home. I've come across that. And it does happen. So we are hoping that that is going to help us a lot, even helping us with the notion of the baseline that Honorable Mkhize talked about. It's a great pity that we have not presented to you in full as to what the fiscal verification is doing. If we had that opportunity, you'll see, we even say, give us the conditions of each and every school. It's not your classical conditional assessment, which is done by experts in infrastructure. But people who are in schools who are able to say, do you have a toilet? Is it functional? Do you have running water? That data we are also going to get from the very same exercise that we are running. The only province that is not part of it is Western Cape, and they've elected to do their own separate. All the 8 provinces are part of the fiscal verification. And I had an update yesterday, and the undertaking is that by next week, Thursday, Friday, we should be done. And once we are done, Chair, you had said we have to come back to you and give you the report. We'll definitely come so that you see what emerges from this exercise. How many ghost employees do we have? And even the status of, to some extent, of our facilities. 29 million still to be investigated. It is the amount that has been flagged by the AG, which is awaiting our internal audit to do an investigation and to tell us whether there's any malfeasance. Do we need to report to the law enforcement agencies? do we need to take disciplinary action? Those are the cases that the internal audit has to investigate, and they involve projects that I've reported about. Some projects where we had appointed an implementing agent, then Limpopo decided to implement their own implementing agent. So internal audit is investigating that. Whistleblowing, there's legislation in place. We are bound to follow legislation to protect whistleblowers. And our policies are also aligned to ensure that whistleblowers are protected. Maybe as I conclude, Chair, maybe because you'll say to me I was part of this meeting, my advice is that maybe in terms of concurrent functions, in Parliament, you could jointly maybe get a presentation from legal experts to help us so that there's trust and certainty between the committee and our political authorities. It should not come across that the minister and deputy minister don't want to do their work. As to what is the authority that is there, but what I know is that you've got amazing authority as a committee. You can subpoena anyone and everyone. And which previous committees have done, and it has helped, as Honorable Ngobeni said, tell us if they are impeding you from doing your work so that we summon them here. It has happened before, and I think it will go a long way to assist. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG. That was the last hand, if I'm not honorable. Yes, Honorable Makakula.
Thank you, Chair, and I also welcome the presentation. There was some of the issues which are covered from my colleagues. I would raise the one which is still not covered. Chairperson, on the issue of irregular and wasteful expenditure, I think each and every year it's in the agenda, it's in the report of AG. But instead, sometimes of seeing it going down, it's going up or up and down. The recommendation which this committee, I recommend that we adopt is that can we insist that in 2025-2026 financial year, we don't want to see anything less than the 0.0000 billion wasteful and irregular expenditure on the presentation. And that is going to assist us. And department, can you also maybe assist us in terms of telling us or informing us that what are your stricter measurement to prevent such irregular and wasteful expenditure to carry on in the department? I would say, Chairperson, in terms of govern as this seventh administration, if we fail to come up with stricter measures, we will be seen as a failed government or administration. And these people who are involved in doing these things are the people whom we trust that they've got skills and competency and capacity to do umsebenzi wabo ngendlela efanele, and they are professionals. And being a professional, I know that you can't play with your career, because there are these institutions where you account and you pay a levy or yearly or annual levies, which are monies which are exorbitant. But if you are playing with that career of yours, that just within a wink of an eye, you want to lose your job and your career is finished, it's done. I think they must think twice. Ngoba, we can't see mele going forward. So, Chairperson, in terms of e-scholar transport, I just want e-department to tell us what is the role of the department in making sure that our scholar transport are safe, in terms of allowing this transportation businesses carrying our children in the manner such that amanye ama izimoto, they are not conducive to carry abantwana, and we see our children most of the time losing their lives through the unfit of the scholar transport, some of the scholar transport which are not supposed to be on the road to carry the lives. So maybe if I'm asking the role, I just want to know before the scholar transport will be accepted to carry a child, is the department involved in terms of inspecting and awarding that transport ukuthi iphasile ama-test wonke na as it's supposed to do ngemisebenzi, because Tina will hold i-department accountable for the loss of our lives we'ingane zethu. So can you do something in that? But also on detecting ukuthi che ukuyagangwa in whatever, whether it's a department or it's at a school where imali ingasebenzi ngendlela right. Can't you maybe as a proposal, Minister, can't you seek maybe companies which are these ITC IT companies which can invent an app that can assist us to detect immediately a person is trying to ukuganga and and we identify that person immediately before even a cent is lost. You know, an accountability of monies. I'm not an financial expert, but I've got an experience where when I was a shop steward, an organizer was given a money way to go and give ama workers where there was a strike, and the money, when it comes to accountability, 187 rand was short in terms of the accountability, and that 187 rands divided the conference, divided the organization. We call a conference, remember 197, and when you call a conference, it's millions. I mean, yes, it's millions which you have to spend for 4,000 delegates to come and converge and discuss on the issue. We even further spend more, because at that time, it was the time when our leaders were in exile, for consultation, to send a delegation to go and seek advice as to who amongst the two factions is correct, of saying no, but 197 we can't dismiss a person. And for those who said 197 is too much rands. And the answer was that even half a cent, if you are given a money which is not yours, you have to account for. So that organizer, ulindelwe to be dismissed, and he was dismissed. So I'm saying that the accountability of finance is not like any other career. You can just dismiss R1 uti but inga recover. So I wonder if maybe an ethics or whatsoever no nembeza umuntu uma esebenza emsebenzini awaziyo ukuthi imali ayisebenzisayo akuyona yakhe ulala kanjani. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Makakula. Can we respond to the questions?
I think I'll just kick us off just on the last question that the Honourable, I think mostly the comments, Chair. I think the Honourable Member is absolutely right about the fact that besides just recovering of money, there has to be a sense of greater accountability and ethics that's introduced in our public service. Because yes, we can recover money, we can throw people in jail, but I agree with you that there has to be a far more responsible way in which we deal with public money. And even money that is stolen, even a 1 rand that is stolen is 1 rand too many. And so I can assure you that as we are dealing with things like irregular expenditure or fruitless expenditure, some of these monies, it's not that they have been stolen, but it's a compliance issue, which is what the AGSA racks us over the knuckles about, that there's a reason why there has to be compliance, because it's good financial management to do so. So I don't know, DG or DM, if there was any other specific question.
No, thank you, Minister. Just the last point, I think it gives a huge sigh of relief to us in basic education. This is the last year of both ASIDI and SAFE. So going forward, I'm sure we'll talk about something else other than just, I don't know what the report of the AG is going to look like. And I think we are a very good candidate for a very clean report. But as the Minister said, the problems are going to provinces. I know that you're not going to leave us. You're still going to wrap us around the knuckles. Even though we'll say to you, there's an accounting officer at provincial level, we'll still have to come and account, because the AG would cover even the 9 provinces where we need to explain. But the other issue, Honourable Chair, just to remind the honourable members that some of the projects are multi-year projects. And the difficulty, Honourable Mkhize, and I want to report the way you want us to report. For instance, the AG said the irregular expenditure has now decreased to this amount, which is cumulative, is not for 1 financial year. So I'll know next time when I come to you that I have to unpack for all of those years and say, in this year, this is what happened, this year, this is what happened, and this is the action that was carried out. I thought it's important to just explain that. But in addition, projects as big as 24 classrooms and even more, you don't build them over 1 financial year. These are multi-year projects. And therefore, if an irregular expenditure was picked up, it's likely to continue until the project is completed. So it would still reflect in the financials of the department as irregular expenditure. But what is important to you is for us to explain as to what have we done. The learner transport of the 9 provinces, 5 provinces are within the Department of Basic Education. The other 4, the learner transport is provided directly by the Department of Transport. But even with that arrangement, the policy is very clear. The responsibility of education is to identify the needs and to make sure that those needs are provided for, whether within education or within the Department of Transport. The roadworthy vehicles or vehicles that are not roadworthy, or the inspection of vehicles rather, is done by the Department of Transport. So the policy is very clear whose responsibility it is to make sure that vehicles are roadworthy. And even whether children are fed in the proper vehicles or not. And I can tell you that a number of the vehicles that are ferrying learners, some of them are privately procured. They are not procured by the state, because the state is very strict. For instance, Umueli, if he chooses to take his children to school D instead of A, when school A is within my proximity, I pay for that private provider, and many of them do not comply. Their vehicles are not roadworthy. When they get involved in an accident, the public doesn't care. They say government must account. Government must explain for what has happened. So the minister has been working with the Minister of Transport, particularly the Deputy Minister for Transport, to try and strengthen the collaboration between the two of us. And we're hoping that that relationship also cascades to even provincial level, so that the inspection, the checking, the roadworthiness of vehicles is regularly checked to avoid some of the things that have happened. About the app, I'm sure the team will look at that, will discuss it with the Department of Transport. With the advent of technology and artificial intelligence, I think it's very good advice. That's something that we can consider to monitor the ferrying of learners throughout the system. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Law. I saw your hand, but we are establishing a new rule. You were not here, so we are not going to allow you to ask questions for this presentation. So you will ask questions for the other presentations that when they are made, you were here. So it's actually a means of punishing members on adhering to time. I think, majority of the issues I had, AG, have been covered by members. But I think your opening remarks for me were very important. And we need to also endeavor as a committee to try and nudge the departments to work together. And I'll tell you why it's very important. We conducted an oversight in Free State just last week, and that's where you see how important it is for all departments to work together to deliver basic education or education in general. That if you speak about issues of infrastructure in an area we could not believe the level of or the conditions because of sewer spillage in the school. And even if you wanted to blame the department, what do you say? Because it's not their competency. So you need to bring COGTA. You need to bring local government, and they must work together to ensure that the infrastructure, because the department was saying this sewer spillage, because it has been carrying on for a year, it is now affecting the structure, the infrastructure now. It's affecting the building structure. And issues of billing, issues of the amount of money that schools are spending on municipal bills. So I fully agree with you. And for example, if you speak about ECTs, it's in the report, the role that is played by local government in terms of the law on providing or maintaining ECD infrastructure as well. So what you said was very important, I think, and the Department of Health, the DSD, it's important for us as Portfolio Committee to nudge the departments, because I can tell you, you're correct. Government departments don't work together. I don't know what's the problem. When they work together, they find it difficult. When we were engaging on the non-payment of teacher assistance, DBE was saying to us, actually we were doing this thing alone and it was fine. Now we have to do it with labor, now it's a problem. Because government departments don't like working together. They just don't want it. They all focus on their APPs and they want to focus on their APPs. If there are key indicators has to do with another department, then you'll have problems. They just have problems. And I think it's something that we need to nudge, because they can't do it alone. No one can do it alone. There's no one who can do it alone. So I think I fully agree with your sentiments that we need to get everybody, we need to create, and even if there is challenges with working together, we must actually find ways to ensure that we work together and create systems that pushes us to work together. The issue of the scholar, okay, we learned when we were in Free State that it's learner transport. We call it scholar transport. We just know scholar transport, and we learned to know there's a difference. There's a learner transport and scholar transport, and we were learning that. We were told that there's a policy review, and it's very important. We want to engage with that review, because there is discrepancies. We agree with the findings of the AG that there is discrepancies in different provinces on how it is provided and the safety of it. So that policy review, we really also have to engage with it as a committee to see if indeed the policy review is responding to the challenges that we've also picked up. The ELRC report, DG, we said to you, bring us updates as you go. So of course now, maybe because we've got a lot of programs, we've not gotten that update, because it's very important. AG, we have been told when we visit provinces that there is ghost employees. And we said, but how do you have ghost employees if there's a PESAL system? We didn't understand. And now that it is raised in the AG report, it's really important, it's very serious. So we need to get that headcount report by the ELRC as soon as possible. Honorable members, we tried to do this this year and we couldn't because of time. We actually agreed that we must summon all the PEDs to come and present to us their APPs, because we said if you go and do an oversight, you are late already. They already have plans on what they are going to do, which areas they're focusing on, where they're going to prioritize their budget on, what they are allocating to what. So we're late. Even if you get there, you shout at them, they will tell you, but this school is not in our current medium-term plans. They maybe in the outer years, maybe in the new financial year we'll think about it. So we're late by then. We tried to do it, to say let's invite, and we couldn't because of course of the budget cycle issue, and we had to postpone. Because we said we need to engage with the PEDs at their APP level, at their planning level, where we then hear what are their plans. What do they want to prioritize in this financial year? And this report is going to assist us, because then now we must actually summon them not only to question them, but also to speak about these findings, the financial management findings of the AG, to say, what are you saying? And go to details, because there's details here. Go to details. There is this contractor that apparently you awarded to somebody who was not in terms of not the lowest bidder. I don't know what the criteria is. Who was not the lowest bidder. Why did you do that? Why were you not able to provide reasons to AG as to why did you choose this contractor instead of that contractor? And I think we should do that. I think we must do that. We tried to do it, but we couldn't. But I think we must now do it to also so that the PEDs must respond on these findings. there must be somebody who responds on these findings. It can't just be, no, we are noting them, but I think there must be a response to these findings. And I think there are provinces that are highlighted, like your KZN. I think we should start with those provinces. We should start with those provinces as we start this. But the work that the AG has done, all in all, AG, we really appreciate it. Because it actually shows, or it actually says, what we ourselves observe as a committee when we do oversight is actually there in the report, you know. And one of them, so my only question, and this is a report that I think, DG, we want you and Minister to present to us, the issue of delayed school projects. It's there, we've seen it. We've just been to a school where it was delayed by 36 months. And the AG report says there is other areas where they are delayed by 1 to 10 years. Imagine a project delayed by 10 years. I mean, I can just imagine. And there is specific schools that are mentioned in the report. So we want a report, Minister, of all these delayed projects. All of them, where they are, the names of the projects and how long and who, because of course when you go there, the department says it's public works, it's implementing agents, not us. But then if it means we must get public works here to speak about those projects, then we must do that. As to what are the plans in place to ensure that those projects are completed, and consequence management, of course, as well. So I think we will need that list, that comprehensive list from the department, so that if we need to call the public works, we should do that. All in all, I think there is the issue of teacher development and the non-recording. I think SACE did speak to us about that, and we engage with SACE that there needs to be an intervention in place that will improve the reporting of teachers. The last one for me, AG, you know, we've been discussing the overall funding model, and we tried to discuss this with the FFC of our schools. I mean, who will tell you the standards and norms, the expenditure per learner in public schools per year? For us, we believe it's not adequate. You have a school that is so big that has only 17,000 as their maintenance budget, because that is the 1% of their standard and norms. What will they do? They can't maintain anything with 17,000 if you look at the school and how dilapidated that school is. So you can just see that this school is set up for failure, and that is many of our schools. These are schools in your townships, these are schools in your rural areas where the infrastructure is dilapidated, but they don't have a maintenance budget. That budget is actually nothing when you compare it to the infrastructure that has to be maintained. So there is something fundamentally wrong with the funding model. And we really want the department to come to us, because we've had this discussion with FFC to the extent where when you go, you find that, and that's another issue, you're trying to recover funds through ghost employees. That's another issue which the PEDs must respond to. They are also subsidizing independent schools. You find an independent school that has a surplus of about 6 million in their budget. They receive a subsidy of 1 million. You go to a farm school. That farm school is seriously struggling. So there is something that we need to really engage on this funding model and find a way to find a model that works for the poorest and the vulnerable communities. The last one for me, you can speak about an automated tendering system, but what I've actually said is that, can we review how the state buys goods, procures goods and services? The tendering system, all of it. You can automate it, but can you speak to it? Because let me tell you, what costs the state, if the state has to build an ECT center, there's an ECT center that was donated by a mine, and they built it on time, and it was much lesser than what it would cost the state to build. So same building, but if you were to ask the state, how much did you spend on building that? It's double what a mine spent to build the same. So definitely then it says we must really just speak about the tendering system. And the AG will assist us. You will assist us about how do we deal with this, how the state requires goods and services really. Because that's the only system we have. So we've not built state capacity over time. We've not built state capacity. That's why we've got consultants, everyone. So we spend a lot of money. You must firstly get consultants, engineers, because you don't have that capacity as the state. And over time, you've never built that capacity. So you must spend a lot of money on consultants. And then the consultant colludes with contractors. They collude with officials. Because, there's one thing about, we always say politicians, officials. And I say, there's no politician that sits in a bidding and award a tender. It means the officials are colluding with the politicians, and they're also colluding with consultants. As you said, that then consultant will say this work is correct and the work is not correct. So it's a conversation that the AG will have to help us on. How should the state procure services and goods in a manner that we can really make sure that there's checks and balances? We can automate it, I agree, where it's not only just checking, where a tender bid it's really automatically, you just enter and automatically the system tells you this one qualifies and this one. So you remove the human element. Perhaps that can assist. We don't know. But we need to find a solution because it's a problem. It is a problem. Every year we must speak about tender irregularity, tender tender this and tender. And the state loses a lot of money. A lot of money, millions in that process. So we need to have that conversation. And we as basic education, what it results in is our learners, as you're saying, DG, in terms of NSNPs, our learners not receiving food. And the NSNP program, I was saying to members when we do oversight, it's one of the intervention that is a pride. I think it should be a pride of this government. As you go to those schools and you see learners are receiving food, they are eating, and you see the impact it is having on attendance, the impact it is having on the performance of learners. So, but then there is some contractor that does not deliver food on time. There is some contractor that is appointed for learner transport and they don't come for a whole week, and learners, so that is a conversation that I think we must have. Honorable Ngobeni says at a philosophical level, perhaps we must have it so that we come with solutions, because we must come with lasting solutions. I think on the other issues, honorable members, I'm really covered. I only had that request that give us that list. We did have a meeting earlier on, I think, DG, where we actually just focused on the state of the schooling infrastructure, and you delivered a report. I hope you can actually, because Honorable Mkhize is correct, really appreciate your comprehensive report. It gives us serious insight. And when we do call those PEDs, we will invite you. We hope that you come, because we are going to be asking details now. We want to go to details. With those PEDs, we'll call them. I think we'll have to call all of them in the beginning of the new year to really get them to account on all these findings, and also interrogate their indicators. Why do they choose to ignore other indicators and then they choose to take others? We would need to ask them as account, so that we assist the department with that concurrent function that they say. They sound as they actually sound like they are saying, there's nothing we can do, portfolio committee, it's not our space. But I think the minister actually mentioned that there is some provisions on what they can do, and we're going to follow you up on that, Minister, on that provision. Yeah, so thank you very much, AG. We are going to release you. You did request to be released. We're going to release you. And at 1 o'clock, members, we are expected to take lunch, because the kitchen staff is complaining. They complain about us. They say we always take long to come to lunch. So 1 o'clock, we'll take lunch. But AG, thank you very much. We're going to release you so that we can take the presentation from the department before we take lunch. So we'll allow you to do the presentation, then we go to lunch. Then we come back to ask questions. The team is, thank you very much for remaining, so that, it's important, actually. Minister, your team is ready? Is your team ready? Or you want us to take an early lunch? Then we come back and start. That's also fine. That's also fine. Let's break now, and then we must come back at around it should be 13:40. It's an hour. Yeah, 13:40. Let's come back. Okay.